It is an absolutely gorgeous day for baseball here in Central Florida as baseball fans from the Midwest take a break from the winter, flocking to the sunshine and warmth of Florida. Spring training is in full swing as we welcome you to Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland. Today it's the Detroit Tigers and the St. Louis Cardinals. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to our coverage of spring training baseball right here on Fox Sports Detroit, and a special welcome as well to the folks tuning in at Fox Sports Midwest watching Cardinals baseball here today. And we bring in my partner Rod Allen, and Rod, pitching seems to be one of the big topics in spring camp, especially today for both of these teams. We'll start with Phil Koch. He's trying to make that transition from the bullpen to the starting rotation. How's that transition gone so far?
I think so far it's gone very smoothly for Phil Koch. Remember, he started 77 games in the minor leagues for the Yankees before coming over to the Tigers in that trade last year. Talking to Rick Knapp, the pitching coach, he said he's been very encouraged with his touch and feel pitches. That would be the breaking ball and also the changeup, which you need to be a good starter. Also, Rick Knapp told me to look for the velocity on the fastball today. It really hasn't been there. They'd like to see it get back up to 92, 93, which it was at the end of the season last year for Koch.
All right, now with the Cardinals perspective, let's bring in the Cardinals analyst Al Hrabosky, and Al will talk about pitching as well. And Al, Chris Carpenter takes the hill today for the St. Louis Cardinals. An important start for him considering that Wainwright is out for the season with an injury. They are really looking and hoping that Carpenter can get back onto that mound.
Well, Carpenter is still projected to be opening day starter. He did have one mound appearance early, March 1st. After 33 pitches, he tweaked his left hamstring. He came out of that game. Now, he did miss a start, but that same day, he threw a simulated game, threw 45 pitches. So Dave Duncan really believes that he'll go 50 to 60 pitches here today, and that'd be welcome news for Cardinal Nation.
All right, we've got plenty of sunshine. We've got blue skies atop. Are you guys ready for some baseball today?
I'm ready.
All right.
Ready.
It's the Cardinals and the Tigers here this afternoon as we welcome you to Lakeland, Florida in spring training 2011. The Tigers and Cards, two of the big bats will be in the lineup today. Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera stay with us. The lineups are next. Welcome back here to Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland, Florida on an absolutely picture-perfect afternoon. Another big crowd on hand here today. The Cardinals are in town to take on the Detroit Tigers. And Jim Leyland and Tony La Russa, great friends, will square off in this one. Jim Leyland's team so far this spring, 13 wins, 8 defeats. He is excited about his team's chances this year in the American League Central Division. And for Jim Leyland, another strong club. We'll see many of the Tigers starters here in this game today. And Al Hrabosky, Tony La Russa, well, he's at the helm again this season of the St. Louis Cardinals. And I would imagine pretty excited about his chances as well this year.
Absolutely. Third on the all-time win list is Tony, 15th year here in St. Louis, and looking for another pennant. This guy just is, it's all about winning. And right now he expects his team, if they give him the effort he asks from them, he expects them to be on top when it's all said and done.
And of course, Tony La Russa and Jim Leyland met in 2006 in the World Series, the Cardinals winning that year back in 06. Let's check out the starting lineup for the visiting St. Louis Cardinals. Ryan Theriot leads off. He'll play shortstop, followed by Colby Rasmus in center field. Albert Pujols is batting third, playing first base. David Freese at third base. Lance Berkman, a new acquisition, the DH. Alan Craig is in right field. Skip Schumacher at second base. Yadier Molina and John Jay round out the lineup for the St. Louis Cardinals. Yesterday, we had over 10,000 fans here with the Red Sox in town. Today, with the Cardinals in town, another big crowd in one of the areas here in Lakeland that is a fun spot to take in the game, the berm out in left field. And I would imagine that we will approach a sellout here this afternoon as well. The temperatures are scheduled to be in the 80s today here in beautiful Lakeland, Florida. Well, Al, of course, Albert Pujols was the big story coming into spring camp this year. They did not get a contract done, but it appears that maybe some of that talk has died down a little bit. We've gotten back to baseball.
Well, I think both sides have really just said, let's diffuse the issue, let's talk about it in the offseason. It appears he's headed for free agency, but he has not ruled out returning to St. Louis.
So Albert Pujols, again, making the trip from Jupiter today with the Cardinals. He will be in the starting lineup for St. Louis here this afternoon. Of course, Miguel Cabrera, Rod, is the big bat in the Tigers lineup this season. And for the Tigers to be successful, there is no question Miguel Cabrera is going to need another MVP type season.
There's no debate about that. They went out and acquired Victor Martinez, who played for the Boston Red Sox last year, to hit behind Cabrera this year to provide some protection for the big fella. But there's no question, there is no doubt, the Tigers really need Cabrera to have the same kind of year he had last year if they're going to get to where they would like to get to.
And we'll check out the Tigers defensive alignment here this afternoon. For the Tigers in the outfield, they've got Bosch, Jackson, and Thomas. Along the infield, Brandon Inge anchors third. Cabrera is at first. Will Rhymes at second base. Santiago opens up at short. In your battery today of John Murian and Phil Koch. And speaking of Phil Koch, Rod, here are the particulars on Mr. Koch, who again is making that transition from the bullpen to the rotation.
You know, one of the things that David Dombrowski, the general manager, and Jim Leland, of course, the manager, talked about the last couple of years was the need for a left-handed starter in that rotation. When you play in the American League Central, and there's so many potent bats across the league, you need a left-hander to negate some of those bats. I'm talking about Mauer. I'm talking about Morneau. I'm talking about Tomey. I'm talking about Big Adam Dunn now. And Koch appears to be that guy. He's had a pretty good spring. He's got a decent fastball, anywhere from 91 to 93. He's got a really nice slider, and he really started to incorporate his changeup last year at the end of the season, which allowed him to get right-handers out. So let's look for that today from Phil Koch.
And here's the other thing on Koch, Rod. I asked him last year, would you rather be a reliever, a closer, or a starter? And he kind of smiled and said, I want to start. I think most guys want to start, so he's willing to do this.
There's more Benjamins when you're a starter, that's for sure. You get a few more nickels.
There's Rick Knapp, the pitching coach of the Detroit Tigers, and of course he is pretty excited about the rotation the Tigers have sculpted this year, and Phil Koch will certainly be a big part of that rotation if he can certainly contribute as the lone left-hander in the starting five for Jim Leland's team.
The one thing about Koch that we will have to watch for this year, because he came out of that bullpen last year like his hair was on fire. When he got to that mound, I mean, he was breathing fire. He was throwing 94. He was throwing 95. And he really only used the slider. But now being a starter, what will he do to temper some of that emotion? He was tremendous last year in that bullpen. As you see the numbers, 74 games, 7-5, respectable earned run average. He took the baseball every single time Jim Leland called down there. But one of the tougher things to do is to temper some of that emotion coming in, throwing one inning opposed to going 6 and 7 when you get the ball.
Well, we are ready for baseball here this afternoon as Ryan Theriot leads it off for the St. Louis Cardinals. It'll be Theriot, Rasmus, and Pujols on a gorgeous afternoon here in Lakeland, Florida. The first pitch of the ball game is in there for a strike on Theriot.
The real controversies are not controversies, but one of the questions is who is going to lead off and Tony's batting order. I think he's really settled in on Theriot.
Theriot slaps the next one foul. He had 6 years in the National League with the Cubs, last year with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that leadoff slot, obviously, a very important part of any lineup. So the sooner you can kind of settle in on someone, the better.
Schumacher's done a great job, but it sort of sets a tempo.
In the air to shallow center field. Jackson coming on. And Theriot is retired.
Al, I would imagine, that just like Jim Leland with Tony La Russa, you want to try to get somebody at the top of that batting order that has a pretty nice on-base percentage so that you can have some ducks on the pond when number 5, Albert Pujols, steps in that batter's box.
Well, not only that, but Tony also likes thunder in the 2-hole. So if you have Schumacher, a left-handed hitter, in leading off, and then you have Kobe Rasmus in the 2-hole, there's back-to-back left-handers. So it's a little more balanced if you have the right-handed hitting Theriot leading off and then Schumacher, or excuse me, then Rasmus.
Here is Colby Rasmus, and speaking of thunder, he hit 23 home runs last year, and that's something, Rod, that Leland talks about. He got that from La Russa, thunder in the 2 spot.
Well, La Russa gave Leland his first opportunity to coach in the major leagues way back in the 80s with the Chicago White Sox, and obviously the two are best friends, and they're very fond of one another, and they kind of patterned themselves after one another.
1 ball and 1 strike on Colby Rasmus. Hammer to left field. On the move is Bosch. Coming toward the line. He won't get it. It's a fair ball. Extra bases for Rasmus. And he will cruise into second with a 1-out double. First hit of the ball game belongs to Rasmus, who came in batting .270 this spring.
One of the things that you have to understand when you're in left field and you have a left-handed hitter that hits the ball in that direction, it's pretty much going to slice away from you. You could tell that Brendan Bosch a little bit battling the sun here. Don't think he'd have made the play anyway. He might have been able to keep him to a single, maybe not the double, but very, very difficult to play the outfield in Arizona and in Florida, especially when the sun is shining.
So that'll bring up Albert Pujols now with an RBI chance early in this game. Albert batting .233 this spring. Another MVP type season last year for the Cardinals.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? 10 years in the big leagues, well over 300 each year, over You know, he's averaged 40 home runs. He's averaged 120 plus RBIs and a 330 batting average in each of those 10 years.
You know, it really amazes me about Albert Pujols. Everybody seems to concentrate on the offense, and certainly rightfully so, but he is a Gold Glove caliber first baseman as well.
Picked up his second last season.
And when you put the whole package together, you know why it's going to be difficult to finally get a deal done with him. But here are the numbers on Albert Pujols: 400, better than 400 home runs in his career.
During the regular season, with a base open, I don't care if it's the first inning or the ninth inning. I am not pitching to Albert Pujols. I'm not giving him a whole lot to hit. But, of course, this is spring training, and Coke is out there working on a few things.
The 1-1.
Rod, there are times when we are disappointed that the runner ahead of, or the batter ahead of him hits double. Stop it first.
You don't like that. Yeah.
But that's where the protection that Holiday provides, and hopefully now Berkman will provide that for Holiday.
That last pitch was a changeup by Coke, and that's something that Rick Knapp has been very encouraged by this spring with Coke now starting, is the fact that he will throw something off speed in a fastball count.
The 1-2. Pujols stays alive. Albert, 42 homers last year, finished second in the MVP voting over in the National League. Joey Votto had a terrific year last year, and he won the MVP. He's trying to pick up Rasmus here with one out in the first inning, just underway from Lakeland, Florida, in front of a packed house here.
10 seasons big leagues, 9 All-Star appearances for Albert.
Not a whole lot he hasn't done, is
No, 3 MVP awards, 2 Gold Gloves now.
And the 1-2.
A manager's dream when you have a superstar that works as hard as he does. And I'll ask you two, you have to be a little shocked to see the Cardinals lineup and the team that they brought, a 3-hour bus ride, and you got Pujols and you got Berkman, you've got Carpenter starting, Molina in the lineup. Virtually the only regular that's not in the lineup is Holiday.
Is Holiday, yeah. We saw that yesterday. The Cardinals were going to bring just about a full complement of starters, and that made for an exciting day today. And that one is fouled off. Pujols with an awkward swing there. Coke got in on that time.
Ball might have hit him on the foot.
It did hit him on the foot.
Swing.
After swing.
What a pitch by Coke.
Wow.
Maybe off the ankle or something, but gets away. So Rasmus will return to second base and a strikeout of Albert. Albert is not happy with the way he's swinging the bat right now, but it's spring, and
Are you worried about him?
No. No.
I didn't think so. Here's David Freese with 2 outs. And you and I were talking before the game, Al, about the importance of David Freese this year in the lineup.
He is real key. Now, David Freese got off to a terrific start last year, had ankle surgery. He's had 3 ankle surgeries in the last 2 seasons, and both years were interrupted. A weird stat last year. He hit 296, but he had almost 40 RBIs, and 30 of those RBIs came in the first at bat. Went down in late May.
The 0-1. Line to right field. That's a base hit. That'll get a run in. Extra bases perhaps for Freese. He'll take the turn and try for 2. And he is in there with a 2-out, 2-base hit, and the Cardinals have the lead.
It's his 8th RBI this spring and only 18 at-bats. He has shown that ability to really have that propensity to drive in runs. And one of the things is he goes the opposite field.
You took the words right out of my mouth. With one strike, you could see that Freese was kind of giving up something there to Coke. Wanted to make sure he allowed the ball to travel, and he created the proper bat angle, which allowed him to hit that ball to right field to drive in that run.
So here's the veteran and new Cardinal, Lance Berkman, batting .286 this spring. Splitting time last year in the National League with Houston before he was acquired by the Yankees. And here is a guy, Al, that brings a wealth of valuable experience, if healthy, and a terrific player.
And a quality guy. He's very good in the clubhouse. He's been nursing an elbow. His problem started last year with a knee surgery, and his numbers were quite down. Now, later this week, he's projected to start playing right field. They've been very cautious with that elbow, just DHing, and I don't think he's a real fan of the DH, and most everyday players are not.
He looks like he's dropped a few pounds from last year as well.
And he's running very well.
Look out, there goes the bat. And the skipper, Jim Leland, had to take cover. And I'm sure he'll give Berkman a little bit of a smirk.
And a little interesting is the switch hitting Berkman, batting right-handed, but he wanted to say hello to Mr. Leland.
Look at Gene Lamont diving as well. 0-2 on Lance Berkman.
Rod, you've seen it at times where a switch hitter will, stay in their favorite position. Would that be because you're thinking he doesn't want that changeup?
Well, he might be locked in against he might be locked in right-handed right now. He might be feeling good from a right-handed standpoint, but a left-hander going up against a left-handed pitcher, it makes you concentrate a little bit more. Maybe that's exactly what Berkman's trying to accomplish here by not batting right-handed against Phil Coke, is the fact that he wants to keep that left-right shoulder locked in, and that's a pretty good pitch right there. Looked like he got away with one there.
2 balls, they're making 1 ball and 2 strikes now on Berkman.
Berkman always noted as a much more dangerous from the left side than the right side.
Coke staying away, evens the count now at 2 balls, 2 strikes. Of course, Berkman spent 12 years with the Houston Astros before some brief time with the Yankees last year. That's a whole lot of time to spend in one league, so I would imagine he's probably more comfortable in the National League.
Most definitely. And, he really wasn't playing every day with the Yankees.
There's a wave and a miss, and Coke finally finishes off Berkman. But the Cardinals get a run on a couple of doubles. They go to the bottom of the first in Lakeland. At the top, Cabrera anchors it in the middle of the 4 slot, followed by Clete Thomas and Brandon Inge. And your bottom 3 today, Avila, Santiago, and Murian. We were to see Victor Martinez. He was in the original starting lineup, but he has a stiff neck, so he's not going today. As Chris Carpenter goes to work, and the first pitch on Austin Jackson is inside. Jackson this spring batting .273. And what a terrific year he had last year as a rookie for the Tigers, facing a veteran in Chris Carpenter, who is coming off a hamstring problem now that they're hopeful is behind him.
Well, it was a situation where he recognized it before it really grabbed him and walked off the field. They were extremely cautious with him. After losing Adam Wainwright, you can understand why. But he's a fierce competitor, and he'll be ready.
Jackson takes strike 2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And Austin, who finished second in the voting last year in the Rookie of the Year voting in the American League, right behind Neftali Feliz. And many thought that Jackson certainly had a terrific chance to win that honor, Rod. I mean, this is a guy that scored 103 runs last year.
I would be one of those. And some of the plays that he made in center field were just sensational. A human highlight film in center field, made every single play, scored bunches of runs, hit close to 300. He had a stellar rookie season.
It's in the air to center field. Rasmus coming over. And 1 gone. And here are the particulars now on Chris Carpenter, who becomes a little bit more important and valuable this year with the injury to Wainwright.
Well, he was always considered co-aces between Carpenter and Wainwright. He'll be 36 at the end of April. But when he gives you 20 or more, you can pencil in 15 or more wins. Now, he's had the best winning percentage in the major leagues since '04 at 84 and 33. And Dave Duncan, who's had a lot of Cy Young Award winners, and he'll put Carpenter right up there, the '05 Cy Young Award winner in the National League.
Here's Will Rhymes, who is battling for that second base position for the Tigers. Of course, Carlos Guillen, it was announced yesterday by Jim Leland, will start the year on the DL, and Rhymes bangs it to center field.
Will Rhymes having somewhat of a slow spring as far as the batting average is concerned, but you have to understand that this young man, in about 191 at-bats last year, hit close to 300. As a matter of fact, hit over 300. So you really don't put too much stock in a spring training for a young guy like Will Rhymes. And that's exactly what I told him yesterday when we were having a conversation. He was kind of down on the fact that his batting average wasn't where he wanted it to be.
So Rhymes now is the tying run aboard here as Brendan Bosch stands in, batting in the 3 slot today.
You know, one of the things that I was shocked, though, Mario, about Rhymes, and we talked about this quite often last year, was the fact that he did not steal 1 base in the big leagues last year. 22 bases in the minor leagues before coming to the show, but didn't steal 1 base, and he was caught 3 times. And he's got speed.
Yeah, he's just way too good of a base runner for that. No balls and 1 strike on Bosch. And I wonder why that is. Is that just because of youth? Is it because the Tigers just didn't want to, you know, with guys like Cabrera coming up after him, maybe run into outs?
I think the latter point is the one that you don't want to run into outs when there's a chance where Cabrera could come to the plate. Even if you're standing on first base, he can drive you in from there.
On the ground to the right side, Pujols with a 3-6. No, not in time. Looked like they had the double play. Pujols was headed back to the dugout, but Bosch, who has surprising speed for a big man, beats it out.
That he does. Brennan Bosch does a few things well. He's got some power, of course. He's got a very good throwing arm from the outfield, and he's got surprising speed for a guy that stands 6 feet 5 inches and weighs about 230 pounds.
Reminiscent of last season when there are a lot of double plays that should have been made were not made. And that's the one thing about Theriot. He has a much better arm than Eckstein and won some pennants with Eckstein and a world championship, but his arm is better, but you know, he doesn't have a really typical strong shortstop arm. That's why a lot of clubs have moved him to second base.
Here's Miguel Cabrera now with 2 outs. And for Cabrera, a couple of home runs this spring. He hit a long one here yesterday against the Boston Red Sox.
2 best right-handed hitters in the game.
No question. Yep. No question in my mind.
You know, Rod and I would talk about that many times last year, and it kind of vacillated between putting Pujols first and Cabrera first and back and forth and back and forth. But these 2 guys, the numbers speak for themselves.
Both have tremendous balance as we get a look at Cabrera's numbers from a season ago and where he ranked in the American League. Absolutely dangerous. Really dangerous.
Josh Hamilton won the MVP in the American League. Cabrera finishing second in that voting. So both Pujols and Cabrera finishing second for the award last year. So you look at the career numbers on Miguel.
I just marvel all the more about Albert. 2 more years in the league, but 2 more monster years.
The 2-1. Carpenter out there today, Al. How many pitches, Dave Duncan? About 60 or so?
Well, initially it was 60, and then he said between 50 and 60. He doesn't look real sharp right now, but you know, for a guy like Carpenter, you just get your work in. Obviously, you'd like to results. You would like to have good results, but if you walk out and you say, "I feel good," so be it.
Driven to the gap in left center field. That ball is down. Over to cut it off is Jay. Here comes Bosch to third. They're going to stop him there, and Cabrera has a solid double to left center field.
That's why the big fella is so dangerous, and he's starting to get locked in after a very slow start to spring training. He takes this ball, it's on the inner third of the plate. He pulls his hands in nicely, hits a seed to left center field. Very nice job by Jay in left field to cut this ball off, because if he doesn't cut it off with the speed of Brennan Bosch, he scores on that play. But a wise decision by Gene Lamont, the third base coach, in holding up Brennan Bosch.
So an opportunity with 2 outs now for Cleet Thomas. And Molina wants time now to have a chat with Carpenter.
Rod, when you have great hitters like Cabrera and Albert, they never fear being jammed. And it always seems that their hands will get to that point. And where the ball's inside, you better get it way inside. You better not leave it middle third.
You know why that is, Al? Is because they got tremendous confidence, and they both have very strong legs, and they rely on their legs to generate the majority of that power. And by utilizing your legs the way that both of these gentlemen utilize their legs, it allows your hand speed to be so quick getting through the zone because your balance is so good.
And lesser hitters get themselves out many times because they fear being jammed.
Take one more look at the side swing here of Cabrera. Look at the legs. Look at the legs. Now he gets that front foot down, and all of a sudden, because he's firm in that lower half, tremendous bat speed, tremendous strength in the hands through the strike zone.
Another comparison between Albert is the head doesn't move.
They're special. There's no doubt about that. 2 very, very special hitters.
This is the 20th pitch coming up now for Chris Carpenter here in the first inning.
Now you watch Carpenter when he gets into a jam, how much tougher he'll get.
Little looper into center field. That ball will drop, base hit. One run will score. Cabrera comes right through the hold sign, and he will score as the ball short hops Molina. Cabrera got away with one there, and the Tigers take the lead.
Cabrera looks like he may have hurt his knee a little bit on that slide. He took quite a while to get up, and then finally got up and held on to that knee. Nice piece of hitting, big breaking ball, 2 strikes. Nice job by Thomas. Rasmus with a very strong throw from the outfield. The slide by Cabrera, and look how gingerly he gets up after the slide on that right knee.
Molina, 2-time gold, 3 gold gloves consecutive for him, but didn't stay down on that ball.
And here's Brandon Inge. The Tigers have a 2-1 lead here in the first.
How much of that you think a guy 260
That's
pounds?
Well, that's the one thing.
A guy 260 pounds coming to the dish. I might have let one go through my legs too in spring training.
Every time I see Cabrera, I marvel at how big he's got.
There's a bouncer to second base, routine for Schumacher. And that is that. So Carpenter gives up a couple of runs here in the first inning. Tigers have taken the lead. We go to the second in Lakeland, Florida. Nothing but sunshine here in Lakeland, Florida this afternoon as we go to the top of the second. The Tigers and the Cardinals, 2-1 ball game. Detroit in the lead, and Miguel Cabrera seems to be no worse for the wear after sliding into home plate to score the run. We're at Joker Marchant Stadium here in Lakeland, Florida. Mario Impemba along with Al Raboski of Fox Sports Midwest and Rod Allen, Fox Sports Detroit. Glad you're with us here this afternoon. Tony La Russa will send Alan Craig to the plate to lead things off here in the second. It'll be Craig, then Schumacher, and then Yadier Molina. So Phil Koku threw 19 pitches in that first inning. 15 of those, Rod, were strikes, so he came out attacking the plate in that first inning.
Which is the key, and that goes with all the starters for the Tigers this year. Jim would like to see all these guys get into the 7th inning when they can, and one way to do that is to be very efficient with your strike throwing.
Jim Leland said, I had a meeting with my pitchers the other day, and to a man I all told them, if you can't throw strikes, I don't want you on the team.
He means that too.
And he means it. You're right. That's chopped foul, third base side.
Always thought if you can't throw strikes, it's a lack of concentration, as long as everything is physically sound.
Al, you pitched in the major leagues for a long, long time. I mean, what is it like for a guy like Phil Koch that for the most part has pitched in the bullpen in the major leagues, now trying to make that transition to be a starter in the big leagues?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out why he would prefer being in the rotation when you could be in the bullpen. Let the starter go 3 hours, and then you just come in and throw 10 pitches and become the star.
See, you're looking at it from an effort standpoint.
No.
Rod talked about the Benjamins a little bit earlier, which is also an important point. Here's Jackson cruising over to right center. One gone.
Now, I've also noticed he's been banished by the bullpenners. Once you're a starter, they don't have anything to do with you.
You're done, huh?
How many starts? Did you make any starts in big leagues now?
I'm a little bit like Phil. I made one start.
Is that right?
But I made my start after 2 relief appearances. Then I got to start at against the Pirates at Forbes Field.
How did it go?
I went I think 5 2/3 innings, came out leading 2-1, and they tied it up with 2 outs in the 9th, and I got we lost in the 10th, so I got a no decision.
Skip Schumacher, the batter. Well, Phil Koch, as Rod mentioned, had made plenty of starts in the minor leagues in the Yankees organization. This is not something that's totally foreign to him yet. He hadn't done it in a while, so in terms of getting the pacing and things like that down, that may take a little bit. But that's what the spring is for.
Well, it's that very fine line, listening to you, how animated he was as a reliever, that obviously you can't expend that much energy as a starter. So trying to find that aggressiveness, but back on.
What would you know about being animated?
You know, you took the words out of my mouth. How would you know about animation?
Grew up in Disneyland.
3-1 on Schumacher. There's ball 4. Koch upset with himself. 1 on, 1 out.
Jose Oquendo, recognized as one of the finest infield teachers in all of baseball. And a guy that I think eventually will get a big league managerial job.
He's interviewed for quite a few here the last couple of years, hasn't he?
He's managed the Puerto Rican national team and the World Baseball Classic. He's getting a couple interviews now, and that's part of the process.
Yeah, you go through the process a few times, and really all it takes is one general manager to like what you have to say to hire you. It doesn't hurt that he gets a chance to sit next to one of the best managers in the history of the game on a nightly basis in Tony La Russa.
How much of a rub-off factor do you think there is with La Russa?
Well, I think there's an awful lot, and you look at Gene Lamont and Jim Leland, both worked with Tony La Russa, and that helped them get big league jobs. But Jose Oquendo is extremely well liked by the Latin players and has an awful lot of influence. He can go to, to Molina, and he can go to Alberts, and he can say what he wants to say, and they'll respect what he says and learn.
Yadier Molina, the batter. Three Gold Gloves for Molina. Of course, part of the Molina family, and we all know the story now. Three Molinas catching in the big leagues. Although I don't think Benji has hooked on anywhere. I think he's going to stay retired, from what I understand.
At one time, it seemed like the Cardinals were trying to talk him out of retirement, and that would have been interesting. But I know they're very, very happy with Gerald Laird,
who Tiger fans, of course, are very familiar with.
Well, Gerald Laird can catch and throw. He's not Molina by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a pretty close second if you want somebody to fill that role when you decide to give Molina a night off. Laird will throw guys out. He will handle that pitching staff.
And everyone with the Tigers told me that he's a much better hitter than what he showed with Detroit last year.
He was a free agent, and I think he just got off to a miserable start. He started to press. Some guys can perform well in that free agent year, and some guys just kind of press. And I think Laird fell into that category of the latter, where he pressed all year from an offensive standpoint.
In the air to center field, and Austin Jackson coming in.
I'm going to ask you, the trade that brought Jackson and Koch was a pretty good one. I know Anderson's an outstanding ball player, but to get, as Jim Leland was telling me, the best center fielder in the American League, and then to get a starting pitcher is a pretty good deal.
It turned out to be a very good deal. David Dabrowski, when he pulled the deal off, I know there were a lot of people that were very, very skeptical because of Granderson and his personality and what he had already done. He had made an all-star team. He had played on the World Baseball Classic team, and he was just a tremendous young man. And you didn't know what you were going to get in Jackson, but they had to be very, very pleased with what they got in Jackson, and now they have Koch as well.
John Jay, the batter. And I think, Rod, this might be the year, and obviously it's only his second year, that Jackson might win a Gold Glove in the American League.
He could have very easily won last year. I think he made quite a few errors on balls last year. Just a little lack of concentration. I'm talking about a base hit where the ball would just roll up his arm, and then the base runner would take the extra base. Those types of errors that he made. When he doesn't make those errors, he will win a Gold Glove or two.
2-0 on Jay. Here's Austin Jackson, who finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting in the American League.
And for Jim Leland to call him the best center fielder in the American League speaks volumes.
The 2-0. So Koch fighting the control a bit now. He has walked a batter in this inning, and he has gone 3-0 on John Jay.
He appears to be fighting his arm slot against these left-handers that have come up in this inning. He walked Schumacher on 5 pitches, and now he is falling behind here, 3 balls and no strikes.
Rod, I'm sure you've seen a lot of left-handed starters who really have more success against right-handed hitters than they do against lefties. And a lot of times, they take away that secondary pitch. Like in his case, maybe the changeup. They have a hard time throwing that pitch.
Great point. Great point.
3-1 is hammered to right field. Lee Thomas is there, and that is that for the Cardinals. So Koch pitches through a little bit of trouble. 1.5 in the books. Still 2-1. We go now to the bottom of the second inning here at Joker Marchant Stadium, and Alex Avila will lead it off in a 2-1 ball game. The Tigers on top of the St. Louis Cardinals. Leland kind of kicking back here this afternoon. That's one of the great things about spring training, seeing the skipper enjoying the afternoon.
Skipper got a nice tan going,
yes,
too.
Yes, he does. He's been down here since, what, mid-February?
Yes.
Here is Alex Avila. Chris Carpenter, by the way, threw 22 pitches in that first inning for St. Louis.
Don't know what Carpenter's going to throw here 1-0 to Avila, but this is a count where they want Avila to be very aggressive on fastballs.
Top slowly toward the first baseman, Pujols.
He did get the fastball, but he rolled over on the fastball. So I know that's one of the things that Jim talked to him a lot about last year, and also Lloyd McClendon, was the fact that when you get yourself in that 1-0 count, that 2-0 count, when you get that piece of cheese, that's the fastball, you have to be confident enough to try to stay up the center of the diamond on that pitch and not roll over on it because you're trying to be too quick.
Meanwhile, Carpenter gets exactly what he wanted, a quick out. Here's Santiago.
I think Carpenter will go out there and a little more aggressive, but it really doesn't matter what he does. He's going to be on this team and be a big part of it.
Slap to left field. Jay cruising over, and there are 2 gone.
The luxury of being a veteran. You don't have to impress the brain trust. You just have to tell them you're ready on opening day.
I got a question for you. Now, obviously, Tony La Russa, when his illustrious career is done, he is going to the Hall of Fame. But how about Dave Duncan, his sidekick, who has masterfully helped so many pitchers resurrect their careers? Is he have a chance to go to the Hall of Fame after being a coach for so long?
Top slowly toward the pitcher. And then Carpenter, tough play, makes a nice play. Hold that thought. We'll get into that when we get to the top of the third. I have a feeling I know what the answer is. 2-1 is our score, and Tigers have the lead.
So, Lance, have you thought about what jersey number you're going to pick this year?
I think I'll just stick with my old number 17.
Actually, that was Dizzy Dean's.
What about 14?
Kenny Boyer.
20?
Lou Brock.
24?
Whitey.
45?
Gibby.
What about 85?
Gussie.
Fox Sports Midwest has a great deal for the fans. It's the Red Meets Blue ticket special. Buy discounted tickets for the Blues game on March 29th or April 5th and get $10 off select Cardinal games in April and May. Call the Blues at 622-BLUE and ask for the Fox Sports Midwest Red Meet Blue ticket.
We go to the top of the third now here in Lakeland, Florida. The Tigers and Cardinals. It's 2-1 in favor of Detroit. Each team getting their runs in the first inning. Tony La Russa here in the third will send the top of his lineup to the plate. It'll be Theriot, Rasmus, and Albert Pujols. Spring training in full swing now. About 2 weeks left before opening day, and this, gentlemen, I assume is the part of camp where guys start to zero in a little bit. You know, early on in camp, you're just trying to feel your way through. But now it's time to get serious.
I think the Tigers made a cut yesterday. They cut about 18 guys. They sent them down to the minor leagues. They sent 1 more down. And the reason you do that with a couple of weeks ago is you want to start to work on some of the fundamentals, the bunt plays, the cutoffs and the replays, and different things like that. And you can't do that with 60 guys on your roster.
Ryan Theriot leads it off for the Cardinals.
Cardinals are down to 44. And in my mind, they bring way too many kids and a lot of extra pitchers, but you need to do that early in camp.
Hammered to center field. Jackson is on his horse. 1 gone. We were talking about Dave Duncan, Al, and Rod had asked you the question of when his career is done as a coach, do you think he's Hall of Fame bound?
Well, I definitely think he is. To my knowledge, there's no coaches in the Hall of Fame, but they should be. And I would think, maybe even a scout category.
Sure.
But Dave Duncan has done a phenomenal job of resurrecting pitchers. Most of them have had some level of success. And then maybe they get to a stage where they lose a little confidence. And it's not that he really totally breaks them down and reinvents them. He just takes what they have and gets them to mentally.
Rasmus hits a bomb to deep right field. Thomas going back to the wall, and that ball is way gone. There's that power you spoke of just a little bit ago during his first at bat. He hit 23 home runs last year.
They mentally believe in themselves, and right now I'm a little concerned, and I haven't seen Phil, Koch, but, you know, he's having trouble with left-handed batters.
Yeah, he has not been all that efficient against the left-handers. Very high leg kick here by Rasmussen. That ball is right down in the happy zone. It's down. Most left-handers love the ball down. And the key to the leg kick is you need to get that front foot down and to be firm to generate some bat speed. And Rasmussen did all of that on that swing.
Kobe, you know, as you mentioned, had 23 home runs, but he's just beginning to scratch the surface of his immense talent.
You also got to believe that it's got to be awfully fun to bat in front of this guy, Albert Pujols. Pujols at his first at bat struck out in the first inning. Maglio Ordonez had a terrific start to last year, Rod, because of the fact that the guy sitting behind him is awfully impressive.
No doubt about that. It does help when you have someone like this, a caliber of hitter of a Pujols and a Cabrera hitting behind you. You're going to get lots of really good pitches to hit, especially when there's runners in scoring position.
And it's amazing how the first thing you say is don't walk the man ahead of Albert. And how I think because pitchers are so conscious of that, they go ahead and do it.
1 ball and 2 strikes on Pujols. Albert's been an all-star just about every single season of the big leagues. He's hit 40 or more home runs 6 times in his career. And the 2-2. Full count now on Pujols.
That's what makes Pujols really, really good, is the fact that that's the same pitch right there that Koch got him out with his first time up, but he wasn't swinging and wasn't biting on that 2-2 slider.
That's drilled deep to left. That ball is hooking, and that ball is a foul ball.
Oh, he is special. Wow. Take a look at the wide stance that he has. He just picks that left foot up, puts it back down, and we talked about the generation of bat speed and power that both he and Cabrera can generate simply because the lower half of their body is so stable and so strong.
And so is the upper body. And that head does not move until after contact. Talked about that with Cabrera. They're really still.
The third base, Brandon Inge. Will throw out Pujols.
He's out in front there, and his head was moved too. You know, it was one of the, so you can see, you know, and he's so smart. He knows when he gets himself out. Not the pitcher got him out. He got himself out that time. Now watch out when you know how this head starts moving a little bit more than normal. And the back leg collapses this time, and he's out there reaching for a ball. And you know he's not happy where his swing is right now, but nobody works harder on perfecting it.
Pretty good pitch there by Koch as well. It looked like it was a 3-2 changeup that was fading down and away from Albert, which had him on that front foot and sort of fooled him.
What's going on? I'm praising the hitter, and you're praising the pitcher.
Yeah, I'm lost up here with you guys. That's sinking to right field and caught by Clee Thomas, and that is that for the Cardinals. They tied up, though, on the home run by Colby Rasmus. We go to the bottom of the third in Lakeland.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is.
We go to the bottom of the third here in Lakeland, and it's a 2-2 ball game. Colby Rasmus has just tied it up with a long ball to right field, a solo shot. And for the Tigers, it'll be Austin Jackson to lead it off. And the good news for the Cardinals is that Chris Carpenter threw just 5 pitches in that second inning, Alan. So after throwing 22 in the first inning, he's back on track.
And that's not surprising at all. What was surprising is how effective Kyle Lohse has been. The other day, he went 6 innings, allowed just 1 hit, no walks, and threw 61 pitches. Kyle McClellan 5 shutout innings, but I know Detroit has to be very happy the way their starting pitching has been this spring.
Yeah, Tigers starting pitching has had the best ERA in the Grapefruit League. Carpenter's 1-1 to center field for Rasmus. Carpenter's rolled up some impressive numbers in his career. He's battled some injuries along the way, but the one stat that really sticks out to me are the 35 starts last year, Alan. This is a guy you can give the baseball to every 5th inning.
I believe that was the most in the major leagues, the 35 starts and 16-game winner. You know, when he is healthy, and he's won the comeback player of the year twice. That's an award you don't want to win. So when he gives you 20 starts, he's going to get 15+ wins.
Not many guys going to give you 235 innings pitched, but he's a bulldog out there, and he's one of those guys that Jim always talks about on the opposing team. When you run into a guy like Carpenter, you have to outcompete them.
Rhymes slaps into left field. That'll slice fair. To the corner it goes. Rhymes on his way to second with a 1-out double. Second hit of the game for Will Rhymes, who has perked up a little bit here today.
Looked like Carpenter left something up, and it was away from Rhymes, a little high. And Rhymes, of course, is not a power hitter, which means he's not going to try to do a whole lot with that pitch. Simply take what the opposing pitcher gives you, and that's why he's standing on second base with a double.
I think it was he got a Player of the Year award from his minor league team last year before the game, so it's kind of inspired him.
You know, that could be it. He was the Toledo Player of the Year last year. Will Rhymes. Here's Brendan Bosch, who was certainly inspired when he came up to the big leagues last year. Early on in the season, had a terrific start to his big league career. And Brendan trying to get back to the type of player he was, Rod, the first couple of months when he won a couple of Player of the Month awards.
You know, Brendan told me before the game today, obviously he was tremendous the first half of the year. He should have won. He should have went to the All-Star game, but he really struggled the second half of the year. But he said when he was saying his goodbyes to the coaches, he said Gene Lamont told him something that kind of resonated with him. He said, Gene told me, just get back to being you. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Just get back to being you, being Brendan Bosch.
But how hard is that when you're a young guy and you have so much success early on and things start to go south to try and pull yourself out of that hole that you created?
It was good that he took hold of those words, Mario, because he was hearing it from everybody, from the hitting coach, from the manager, from his buddies, from his mom, from his dad, from me. I mean, everybody was trying to help this kid get out of the funk that he was in. And for those words to resonate kind of tells me that he's in the right frame of mind.
There's Pujols deep behind the bag, and Bosch is retired. Advance the runner to third base.
Speaking of Pujols and Cabrera, let's take a look at these two side by side. Two of the best hitters in the game. You can see Pujols on the left. He's spread quite out. He doesn't really stride, but he gets to that real good power position with the head directly down. You see that bat, that top arm is underneath. Cabrera takes a stride, but they both get to the same position and they look ideal in their finishes. And that's what makes these two so special and such feared hitters. Is they're very, very talented.
The two best in baseball. That'll get away from Molina, but he'll track it down, and Rhymes will hold up at third base.
And they have two different starting positions. As you can see that Pujols, he's wide open. He doesn't really stride. He just picks that left foot up, puts it back down. But of course, Cabrera has the perfect stride and allows him to get in that real good position too. Two great, great ball players.
On occasion, Albert will be fooled by off-speed pitches, but because of that wide stance, he minimizes that negativity.
Hand quickness and God-given ability.
1 ball and no strikes. Miguel Cabrera, who doubled to the gap in left center his first time up. Trying to deliver a 2-out run here. And right back to the mound it goes. Carpenter will pitch out of a jam. So the Tigers get a 1-out double and strand a man. 3 in the books here in Lakeland, Florida. All tied up. Well, we go to the 4th inning now, and Phil Koch goes back to the hill. He has given up a couple of runs through 3 innings. 2 runs, 4 hits for Detroit. 2 runs, 2 hits for the Cardinals. Cardinals have a homer from Colby Rasmus, and Carpenter right now talking with his pitching coach, Dave Duncan. And what do you think, Al, so far through 3 innings?
You know, I think part of the problem is the hitters are a little bit more in tune. Carpenter's trying to catch up. You know, you get back out there, the first psychologically you want to make sure your foundation is fine. That little tweak of the hamstring, which you know it is, but you're still going out there, you're trying to compete. And I will watch him like this, the last matchup when Cabrera had a runner at third base, watch him compete then. And those are the little things that all of a sudden you see Carpenter come back and, you know, be the Carpenter old. Other than that, he's just trying to get his work in.
The good ones, the ones that win 15 to 20 games every year, seem to be the guys that kind of buckle down when the trouble begins.
Well, you know, Mickey Lowich was part of the pregame ceremonies, and part of his introduction is, we all know, is outstanding, but I'm sure he didn't appreciate hearing he gave up 329 home runs. But I mean, the thing is probably 300 of those were solo shots when he had a big lead and he didn't care. He was just trying to get it out.
Lance Berkman is leading it off for the Cardinals. So here's Mickey Loach earlier today. The Tigers celebrating some of the great teams in Tigers history. 75 years in Lakeland here, so a lot of the great Tigers coming back and right. I tell you what, Mick pitched in the days where you didn't go 200 innings, you went well beyond 200 innings.
Yeah, it was 300, and also you go back to the '68 World Series, and Roger Maris told the Cardinals, "Hey, don't worry about
Denny McLain.
Denny McLain. He won 31 games, but don't worry about him. The guy that we're going to have trouble with is Loach, and he won 3 games and was the difference maker."
Berkman takes outside. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Well, these are 2 of the more storied franchises in the history of Major League Baseball. They meet here today in Lakeland.
Both have tremendous fans. Their fan base is incredible.
Look out. Back to the dugout it goes in a hurry. I hope that did not hit anybody.
I think he's chasing Leland.
Leland in the corner of Belliard. Belliard seems to be okay.
Belliard said he got me in a good spot. He got me right in the muscle.
He was always a good fielder. If you're good with the bat, though, right?
I mean, if you're just joining us, Lance Berkman is a switch hitter. And usually against a left-handed pitcher, those of you that know the game of baseball, you're batting right-handed. But for whatever reason today, he's elected to bat left-handed against a left-handed coach, and he has struck out both times today.
I go back. Now, the only thing I can surmise, and I'm not 100%, but I'm thinking the last few days, most of his bats have been against left-handers, so he's trying to get his left-hand swing back, but it's not working.
Well, not so far today with the 2 strikeouts as Alan Craig stands in.
I would have to believe that if that continues to go on like you say, Al, then
sinking in left field, that's a base hit.
at some point in time, Tony La Russa will probably play a B game or get one of the young minor league kids to come over and get some right-handed pitching so that he can work on that left-handed swing.
And like I said, Berkman, who's been DHing because of a tender elbow, is scheduled to start playing right field. And I think the DH is kind of wearing on him, too. You know, I want to go out there. I've been an everyday player. I sat enough last year when I got traded to the Yankees. I want to get back and play in the field.
Well, he's a first baseman by trade. I mean, how do you anticipate the transition for him going to the outfield?
There's been a lot of people that have made a big story out of that. Last time he played was 04 every day in the outfield.
Schumacher hammers one to right field. Craig will round the bag at second. He'll go to third. And a base hit for Skip Schumacher.
Schumacher walked his first time up, but he is now 8 for his last 10. Getting well over 400 now.
He doesn't want to peak too soon. That's a ball that's up in the strike zone that allows Schumacher to hit a seed in the right field. And now we have runners on first and third and 1 out.
A week ago, he was hitting 250. You know, but I mean, that's just a sample of bats. But when you go 8 for your last 10, you'll get up over 400.
You're hoping the season starts tomorrow. That's what you're hoping.
And he is really one of the great guys. And last year, he got off to a horrible start and just was so hard on himself.
There's Yadier Molina. Driven deep to left field. That ball is hooking down the line and foul. Well, Schumacher also was a player that had to switch positions as well. And how much of an effect do you think that had on her?
You know, it's pretty easy for an infielder to go to the outfield, but it's very rare for an outfielder to come to the infield, and that's what Schumacher did 3 years ago. And he hit 300 the first 2 years playing second.
That's in the air to left center, long run. Jackson stretches out and makes a great backhanded catch. A run will score as Craig tags up, and there's some of that Gold Glove type center field that we have seen from Austin Jackson over and over and over.
He makes tremendous plays in the outfield, and one thing about this play, most guys that are on the base pass, if you're on third base, when this ball goes up, you think this ball is going to drop, but because of the respect of Austin Jackson in center field. Craig alertly got back to third base and was able to tag up and score. There are a lot of guys that would have been caught in no man's land on that particular play. Jackson makes a shoestring catch, and they don't score on that play.
You're exactly right, and I give a lot of credit to Oquendo, and more importantly, on Craig for listening and watching, because you're going to score. You know, obviously, like you do, if he catches that ball, or if it gets by him, you're going to score. So why not stay on the bag and make sure?
Because Mario and I, we know pretty much anything going to center field, Jackson has a chance to catch it.
I'm
But
learning.
if most people haven't seen him, that's a base hit.
Yes.
Here's Jay now with 2 outs. Molina gets the RBI. He drops down a bunt. And Cope makes a nice, no, it's back at first base by Cabrera, who couldn't hang on. Cope made a nice play to get it to him quickly, and Cabrera says, my bad.
Throwing that ball right into the runner. Good. Tigers are happy that Cabrera comes out unscathed.
That's a great point.
Good breaking ball there. Nice bunt, puts it down.
Very nice fielding here by Cope.
He could have taken that little crow hop, but you know, he really thinks that he's got to get it there as quick as he possible, and Jay runs well.
That is one of the more dangerous plays for a first baseman, when that ball is thrown in the baseline and you've got a runner running down the line. You don't want to reach in that baseline and have that base runner make contact with your hand, your arm, your glove.
So Cabrera charged with the error on that play, the first error for either side today. That keeps the inning going for the Cardinals. Brings up the top of the order, Ryan Theriot, as we look at the number of pitches now that Cope has thrown in this game. 60 total.
Ideally, you'd like to be around 12 pitches per inning, so you can get out there and get to, you know, through 6 and maybe a little bit longer. And that's going to be the real question for Phil and also for the Cardinals with Kyle McClellan, who's pitched very well, trying to make the 5th starter spot for the Redbirds. Is can you go deep enough into a game? You mentioned that Carpenter had 230 innings, but so did Wainwright.
That's a lot to clean this up too.
Yeah, so what it does is it takes the burden off the bullpen, where you have instead of accounting for 12 outs, you know, maybe you're talking about 6 outs a game. Keep your bullpen fresh.
Ryan Theriot is 0 for 2 with a couple of fly balls to center. And the 0-1. Backed him out of there. 1 ball, 1 strike. Theriot originally a 3rd-round pick of the Chicago Cubs, where he spent about 6 seasons playing in the north side of Chicago. Played in LA for part of last year as well after that trade. One ball and one, make it 2 balls and 1 strike now on Theriot. Cubs and Cardinals, boy, you talk about perhaps the best rivalry in baseball. I know the Red Sox and the Yankees are up there. Cubs and Cardinals, they go at it, don't they?
But it's so, you know, it's so congenial in the stands.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Best friend, not really, seriously.
Seriously?
Best friends will come and sit together. One's wearing a Cardinal uniform, one's wearing a Cub uniform, and it's just bragging rights. There are literally bars in Southern Illinois that Cub fans on one side and Cardinal fans on the other. But you know, everyone gets along. It's not vicious like the Dodgers and Giants or Red Sox and Yanks.
3-1 is inside for ball 4 and back below the bases. The Yankees and Red Sox are anything but congenial in the stands, that's for sure, when they get together. So Colby Rasmus now will step in with the bases loaded and 2 outs. Been a big day for Rasmus so far. 2 base hit and a homer.
You know how we evaluate players, and some players you kind of, you know, you give a free pass to, and others you're a little more critical of because they have so much ability. You try and get all of it out of them. And Rasmus is that type of player that, you know, he has a higher ceiling. And I think now his 3rd year, you can start expecting him to do even more.
But what's the deal with him and Tony? I mean, the fact that he wants to be traded and he's not happy in St. Louis and all those things you read.
There you go, the media again. That's why I say I hate the
Way to
media.
stir it up, Rod.
I'm not part of the media, but you know, there's really nothing other than a 22, 23-year-old kid, and you know, something was said at one time and it leaked out, but he never had his agent or officially requested a trade, and there's no problems.
Well, last time up, Colby Rasmus hit his first of the spring.
Well, he's got some skills. There's no doubt about that. You got that leg kick, you get the front foot down and generates a lot of power, and that's against a left-hander. So apparently he has found his swing here today against Coke.
He's the kind of guy, you know, he's from Alabama, and you kind of lay back a little bit and you wish he had another gear. You know, can you take it into overdrive? And then you see that great talent.
The 1-2. Over his helmet, 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Coke's body language the last couple of innings has kind of displayed to me that he's just kind of fighting himself. Doesn't really feel that comfortable on the mound today.
And Rod, maybe you can talk about that as a hitter. When you display that bad body language, or like, you know, you show that you're frustrated, I mean, that just got to light you up mentally. You think you can own this guy.
It gives you that edge that you need as a hitter.
That was the 70th pitch for Phil Coke.
Nice adjustment there by Coke. On the previous pitch, he left the ball up and in on Rasmus, and he was shaking his hand, and his body language was not good. But he had enough confidence to come right back with the same pitch, and he made a better pitch that time.
You have to keep on using them.
Well, you got to throw a fastball here, something high and tight, something up out of the strike zone. That breaking ball, if he throws it here, Rasmus might hit it again.
And he just missed, and Coke with a long stare in for Jerry Lane.
Threw the change up there, and it wasn't a bad one, but give Colby Rasmus some credit that he laid off it.
Real good location.
You know, Colby is a guy that he needs to cut down his strikeouts.
When you see a hitter lay off of an off-speed pitch that close, that means they're kind of sitting on that particular pitch, looking for something off-speed.
3-2 is inside. A bases loaded walk to Colby Rasmus gives the Cardinals another run. It's 4-2. And this has been a long half inning now for Phil Coke. And the news gets even worse. Here comes Pujols to face him with the bases full.
We talked about, you know, you know Pujols is on deck, and the last thing you want to do is walk the guy ahead of him,
Right.
and they do it.
It's the 24th pitch that Coke has thrown in this half inning. Jim Leland now is going to make a change here.
Kind of lefty warming up.
So the Tigers will go to the bullpen here in the 4th inning. The Cardinals have added 2 more runs. They lead 4-2, and we'll be back to Lakeland, Florida.
Of course, spring training is for stretching out the pitchers, and that's exactly what they were able to do with Coke today. He threw 72 pitches here this afternoon. He only lasted 3 2/3 innings, but remember the error by Cabrera kind of prolonged the inning here, but 24 pitches in the inning. Jim Leland wanted to get him out, but he threw some quality pitches on occasion. That's a real nice breaking ball there to get Pujols to strike out. He also threw some nice pitches to Berkman, struck him out a couple of times. Berkman electing to bat left-handed against Coke today. So when it's all said and done, probably wasn't the outing that Coke wanted to have, but yet the most important thing is 72 pitches, and he gets out of there injury-free.
And he will turn the baseball over now to the youngster Adam Wilk, who is just 23 years old, out of Anaheim, California. And he will face Albert Pujols here with the bases loaded in 2 outs.
I watched this young man make a start a couple of days ago over in Sarasota against the Baltimore Orioles, and they pretty much had their A lineup in the game, and he pitched spectacular. He pitched 3 innings, gave up very little. He worked both sides of the plate. In his repertoire, he's got the fastball, he's got the curve, he's got the slider, he's got the changeup, and he is a control freak.
And he was the Tigers minor league pitcher of the year last year, won 11 games in 2 stops, Lakeland and Erie. And Pujols takes strike 1.
When I say control freak throughout his minor league career, he has walked 31 batters in 241 innings.
That is freakish. And that's exactly what Jim Leland gets back to, throw strikes. That's what they are emphasizing this year, and this young man has done a lot of that. That one misses outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Quietly, he has kind of worked himself into the mix in that Tigers bullpen as a long man. They've got some power arms in Valverde. They've got Perry. They've got Benoit. But you add in a soft tosser like Adam Wilk, and you give guys a different look. And he can get right-handers out as well.
1-1.
It's the kind of guy that I'm thinking that, you know, could give a lot of fits, being the soft tossing, working in and out, but really can't, maybe even a dead fish, turning it over a little bit to get the right-handed batters out. Because you have a sweeping curve to get the lefties.
He's had no problem getting right-handers and left-handers out in the minor leagues, but of course that's the minor leagues.
Big swing by Albert, 2-2.
But this situation right here for me, Al and Mario, even though it's spring training, I mean, you come out of the bullpen with the bases loaded to face one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, this means something if he's able to accomplish getting him out.
So I always say, you know, Jim Leyland did him a favor, because you're not expected to get him out, but if you do, you open a lot of eyes.
Uh-oh. Hit deep. To the wall, Bosch, and gone. It's a grand slam for Albert Pujols.
If you do.
But he didn't. And Pujols hits his first of the spring, and the Cardinals have busted this one open.
Now, make no mistake about it. We've well documented how good Albert Pujols is. There's no way during the regular season that Jim Leyland would ever go to his bullpen to bring Wilk out of the bullpen with the bases loaded to face Albert Pujols. That's just a little breaking ball that's down and away from Albert. He knows that Wilk's not a hard thrower. He stays back and he generates some bat speed and gets underneath it.
And that is an area that Jim told me that is of concern, the bullpen.
So Wilk back to work now on David Freese.
Well, that error at first base is looming large right now.
You know what? I had forgotten about that, and it is. I mean, that would have gotten Polk out of the inning. Career bases loaded. 388 for Albert. A 6-run 4th inning for the Cardinals. They lead 8-2. It's a second home run today for the Cards. The other belongs to Colby Rasmus. Freese ahead 2-0. To third base, deep behind the bag, Inge. Tough play. And they got him at first base by half a step. 9 men to the plate. They break it open with 6. The big blow. Albert Pujols. Grand slam. Back here in Lakeland, Florida, as we go to the bottom of the 4th inning, Albert Pujols has busted this one wide open. It's now 8-2, courtesy of his grand slam home run. And Clete Thomas will lead things off for Detroit as Chris Carpenter goes back to work, and that was his 39th pitch of the afternoon. As we told you, they'd like to stick around the 60 range for Mr. Carpenter today. Here's the 1-0. Thomas rolls this one to Pujols. 1 gone.
By design, a lot of the Cardinal pitchers don't max out with their velocity. As Dave Duncan preaches pitch to contact. And just trying to get outs as a few pitches as possible. He had a long first inning, but since that time he's really settled in, and only 40 now in 3 1/3 innings.
It looks like he's working both sides of the plate. He's incorporating all 3 of his pitches: fastball, slider, and changeup, and looking very, very good here against the Tigers here the last few innings.
You haven't seen the big slow curve ball, but he's got a very effective cutter. There's the curve ball. You know, these good pitchers, you really can't appreciate them until they get in a little bit of a jam. And then they kind of bow their neck and say, okay, you aren't going to get in trouble. Didn't want the fastball, not fastball in, fastball away.
1-2 on Brandon Inge. What was the feeling in Cardinals camp, Al, when Wainwright went down?
Well, I was back in St. Louis. I can tell you how I felt, but
not real good.
No, and I guess the good thing is it happened so early that, you know, you could get over your disappointment. And Tony La Russa's done a great job ever since I've known him. Is he worries about what he has, not what he does not have. Fastball in.
Hammer to left field, hit well. Jay going back to the track in front of the wall to make the catch. 2 outs. I think Leyland was cut out of the same cloth as well. You really can't worry about what you don't have. When something like that happens, you're right. I think it's probably better than it happened early in camp.
Yeah, and And I think the philosophy is okay. We don't have Adam. We'll have him back next year. He's won the most games in the National League the last 2 years. You talk about Carpenter, but Wainwright's been even better. And, it's time for somebody else to step up.
Here's Alex Avila with 2 outs.
You guys know Westbrook better than we, but, Westbrook, we were very pleased that he re-signed with the Cardinals. A ground ball specialist, really falls into the philosophy of Dave Duncan. And with just a little bit of run support, he would have been a big winner when he came over.
Here's Carpenter's 1-0. Yeah, your infielders should be on high alert when Jake Westbrook pitches. We've seen that over and over, Rod. He was a quality ground ball pitcher.
Throws a lot of strikes. A real good 2-seam fastball and a power sinker.
His first 9 starts, if he would have gotten 4 runs of support, which, with our offense, that should be fine. He would have been 8-0 with 1 no decision, and yet he only got 1 win.
Avila is 0 for 1 in this game. Bounced out to Pujols back in the 2nd inning. 8-2 in favor of the Cards. They scored 6 in the top of the 4th.
And everyone is very excited the way Kyle McClellan is throwing, but also Loesch. He had that forearm surgery. He finally has the strength in his hand that he can finish off his pitches. His cutter is effective now. He can pull down on his breaking ball. Everything is looking good, and he's been outstanding this spring.
So the cupboard is not exactly bare.
Exactly.
Here's the 3-1, and there's a walk to Avila.
It was actually the first time I can remember where the Cardinals came into camp with 5 legitimate starters. That there was no chance you were looking at a 6 as an emergency guy, or a guy that would, if somebody got hurt. We just weren't anticipating if one would be Adam or that quickly.
So here's Santiago. That was the 50th pitch thrown by Carpenter. So he's getting just about to the area where they will keep a close eye, and I assume they hope that he gets his final out here and call it a day.
And Ramon Santiago pretty much a lock for a spot on the Tigers' 25-man roster, as he has been the last couple of years. He can play second, he can play short, he can play third.
And he hits this one back up the middle into center.
Also shows the ability to sit on the bench for 3 or 4 days and come into a ball game and give you 4 quality at-bats. Those guys are rare in the big leagues, and that's why Jim Leyland is very, very fond of Ramon Santiago. Sweet little swing on a little 2-seam fastball.
Didn't try to do too much with it.
And what a quality kid. Yeah, not many kids. Quality young man in Santiago.
Well, the Cardinals had lost Adam Wainwright very quickly. Then Carpenter goes out with a hamstring. About a dozen pitches later, Mitchell Boggs has an injured back. Punto has sports hernia and will miss the first month of the season. So the Cardinals that first week, 10 days, were going, what's next?
By the way, Punto, he'll catch everything hit to him, literally. We saw him for years with the Minnesota Twins. 1-1 on John Murian. The Tigers have taken a long look at a lot of the good young catchers. Most of them were sent back down to minor league camp yesterday. That they drafted, 3 of them last year. And Murian was a draft choice a couple of years ago, in 09. That's popped up. Right side of the infield for Pujols. And foul ground to retire the side. So we played 4 innings here in Lakeland. Carpenter should be done for the day.
Follow the Cardinals with MLB.com at Bat 11 for your iPhone, iPad, Android, or BlackBerry. Get spring training scores, stats, highlights, live audio, and more. Text @BAT to 31826 or visit Cardinals.com for details.
Big crowd here this afternoon in Lakeland. They had better than 10,000 here yesterday. Another sellout crowd, it appears, here this afternoon at Joker Marchant Stadium. And as we go to the 5th inning, it is an 8-2 ball game. The Cardinals have the lead. 8 runs, 6 hits. The big blow, the Pujols grand slam home run off Adam Wilk. A couple of runs on 5 hits for the Tigers here this afternoon on a sun-splashed afternoon, and the best part of the year. You can feel opening day right around the corner, just a couple of weeks away. In the meantime, with some sunshine down here in Florida. And these are two teams that certainly have high hopes in their respective divisions in the American and National League, the Central Division.
And one of the reasons why they do is not only do they have very good players, but they also have very good managers. A couple of managers that are very competitive, a couple of managers that are very well respected. And you see where the Tigers finished last year, 81-81, but had a very disappointing second half. I mean, they were right in the thick of things, and then after the All-Star break, the wheels just kind of fell off. And same thing kind of held true with the Cardinals. They were right in the thick of things as well. I remember that big brawl they had with the Cincinnati Reds, and they swept the Reds in a 4-game series. They took over first place, and then their wheels kind of fell out after that.
And Rod, that was in September when Tony's teams usually own September. Took over first place, had a 1-game lead, came home, and struggled against, of all people, the Cubs.
Lance Berkman rolls the first pitch to Will Rhymes. 1 pitch, 1 out. Well, there are some good teams in both Central Divisions in the American and National League. And Rod, certainly the Chicago White Sox helped themselves out with Adam Dunn joining. And you can never count out the Minnesota Twins. And it's going to be another great race this year.
No doubt. Real good pitching in Chicago with the White Sox. And you've got the kind of talent that they have. They've got Burley, of course. They've got Danks, of course. They've got Edwin Jackson. They've got a bullpen anchored by Thornton, that young kid Sale. They've got plenty of pop and speed. Well-balanced team, outstanding manager and general manager. The Minnesota Twins, you could never, ever count them out with Ron Gardenhire, Bill Smith, their general manager, and the multitude of talent they have. It's going to be a 3-team race once again. It's going to go right down to the wire.
It's hit hard to center field, right at Jackson, who started back and then comes in to make the play.
Take a look at what Lance Berkman did before his at bat. He took a face mask over to Jim Lee, and of course, if you're just joining us, he's already thrown his bat over in that direction a couple of times, so he wanted to make sure that Jim was protected this time.
Leland's still holding the mask, too, but he won't put it on.
That's what spring training is all about. Really. I mean, that in a nutshell is what spring training is all about. These guys have lots of fun down here. They're getting in shape. They're getting ready for the season. But it's a chance for fans to get up close and personal with their stars and have a lot of fun.
Skip Schumacher is the batter now with 2 outs, and he rolls 1 to second base. And Will Rhymes handles this one, so it's an easy 1-2-3 inning for Adam Wilk. 4.5 in the books here in Lakeland, Florida. It's 8-2 Cardinals. Then we go to the bottom of the 5th inning here at Joker Marchant Stadium in Central Florida, and the reports of the demise of Chris Carpenter are greatly exaggerated. He's back out there for another inning. He's leading 8-2 as we head to the bottom of the 5th.
Well, we were originally told that he'd probably be on 60 pitch count. Then it was amended to around 50, so it really was a natural assumption that he would come out after the last inning.
Well, that was his 56th pitch. They may want to give him another hitter. As you look at the out distribution for Carpenter.
Kind of speaks to what you were talking about, Al, the fact that Dave Duncan, the pitching coach, he gets them to back off a little bit. He gets them to pitch to contact early in count. They don't care about the strikeouts. They want contact. They want ground balls. They want flyouts.
When you're young, you fall in love with the strikeout. When you get a little wiser, you start saying it takes a minimum of 3 pitches, usually 5, to strike someone out. Why not get somebody out in the first pitch or 2? We have Brian Talent warming up.
Jackson hammers one high and deep to left center field. That ball is hit well, way back. And that ball is off the wall, and Jackson will cruise into second base, and that's a double.
I think we're going to see Jackson hit a few more home runs this year. Didn't hit many last year as he was just learning in the big leagues, but he still has that leg kick, and that's a ball up in the strike zone, and Jackson absolutely clobbers that fastball. And then the ball just doesn't get out of the ballpark, right off the top of the wall there. But Jackson said he wants to steal more bases this year, and I believe he's going to hit some more home runs as well.
What is the natural progression, Rod, do you think, in terms of power numbers this year?
I think Jackson's got a chance to hit 10 to 15 home runs this year. As we look at his ranks as far as rookies in the American League, as you could see, there really was no rookie better than Austin Jackson last year.
And it looks like they have hit that pinch limit now.
So La Russa gives Carpenter one batter here. It's a double in the 5th inning, and it looks like that will be it for the veteran right-hander. give up the baseball. The Cardinals go to the bullpen. And we will step aside. We're in the 5th inning. The Cardinals on top 8-2.
Cardinals very happy with the offensive support behind Chris Carpenter, but that really is the news, is getting Chris back on the mound. Not maybe as sharp as you'd like, but he can really mix his pitches. He threw all of his pitches here. The ground balls are something you always want to see. He only walked one, just another, working on both sides of the plate, utilizing all of his pitches. Not vintage Carpenter, but for spring training and after having a hamstring problem, you'll take this every time. A very, very good sight for the Cardinals, as 4+ innings, 6 hits allowed, 2 runs, a couple earned runs. He only walked one, no strikeouts, and threw 59 pitches.
So Carpenter is done for the afternoon, and he will give way to John Gast. Will take over now. And here are his numbers so far this spring. Gast played his college ball at Florida State. And he will face Will Rhymes here after the leadoff double by Jackson.
Gast is a young man they're very excited about. His first major league camp. And you almost hope you get a runner on first base so you can see this tremendous move.
He hits the first batter he faces, Will Rhymes.
Did he get the knob, or did he get...
Looked like Jerry Lane signaled first base, but apparently not.
Will just should have just kept on going.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like the knob, but you got to be a better actor than
Yeah,
that.
you do. If you want an Academy Award.
Kind of feel like you got cheated, don't you?
I do.
Rhymes has had a nice day, a single and a double.
It was a Derek Jeter that played that off so well last year in a game in Tampa where he didn't get hit the bat knob, but he went down, and boy, you'd have thought Derek would have gotten an Academy Award for that.
Rhymes hammers this one foul.
I would expect that this situation with Gast is one that he's a left-handed pitcher, and of course you got a couple of left-handers coming to the dish here, and Rhymes and Bosch, and Tony probably wants to get a pretty good idea of how he would handle this situation.
Very much so. Now he started through the minor leagues and everything, but right now the veteran Ryan Talent, you would think would be the second left-hand in the bullpen, but you can make, ideally you'd like 3.
Gast will come off the mound and make the tag, advancing the runner as Jackson goes to third base.
Gast is a slender fella though there, Al. It looks like he's not spending too much of that meal money.
You look at his face, I mean, he doesn't have a razor. He's got a cat to lick the whiskers off. I mean, put a little milk on there.
He looks like he's about 6'3", 6'4", about 160.
Ringing wet.
Would you like to know what they list him at officially?
What they got it?
6'1", 195.
He's not 195. I saw him down there walking in.
You did see him.
Here's Brendan Bosch with a man at third and 1 out. Bosch in this one is 0 for 2. He has scored a run. Tigers had a 2-1 lead in this game until the Cardinals broke it open with a 6th spot in the 4th. The grand slam by Albert Pujols. Run it to 2-0 now on Bosch. And really, Rod, coming into camp, there were a couple of things we wanted to keep an eye on. The second base position and Guillen's health. We know he's going on the DL. And which outfielders will come with the team?
Well, they really only have one spot available. It appears that that left field spot is Ryan Rayburn. Of course, we know Jackson's anchored in center. Of course, Maglio is going to be in right. So it just depends on how Jim wants to go with the remainder of his roster.
To the shortstop, Terrio, 2 gone.
You've got Cleet Thomas. You've got the youngster Dirks, who is really, really impressed everybody in camp. Of course, you've got Brendan Bosch and what he did last year. He hasn't had good at-bats today, but his first half numbers were very good. It just depends on whether Jim wants a guy for that final outfield spot that can really run the bases and play all the outfield positions, or whether he wants power. A lot of different variables go into it.
Yeah, Casper Wells has had a terrific spring, hitting .391 as well.
I like the leadership qualities here of Molina. Even though there's 2 outs and there's a 6-1 spread, he probably went out there and told the youngster, you know what, you're trying to make a club. If I were you, I wouldn't give the big fella too good to hit here. And go ahead, if you want to pitch around him, pitch around him. You got a left-hander in that on-deck circle.
So far, he's done a very good job getting the 2 lefties and not allow that man in scoring position to score you.
Because that pitch wasn't even close.
Well, you've got to pitch you know, you've got to think of scenarios and the situation here. And that, you know, but a lot of times when if you get a strike or two on a guy you're trying to pitch around, then all of a sudden you think you can get him out, and a guy with Cabrera's ability can set you up pretty good.
There's ball 3 on Cabrera. And how many times did we see this last year? Yeah, I mean, Cabrera was walked intentionally a boatload of times, over 30 last year, but that doesn't count the amount of times he was walked as they pitched around him.
Great leadership qualities there by Molina. And I believe, well, he wanted to miss with that pitch, but he got it right over the heart of the plate. But the youngster Adam Wilkes didn't have that luxury when he came into the ball game to face Albert Pujols because the bases were loaded.
It's drilled high in the air to center. Hit well. Rasmus going back. Still going back. One hop over the wall. That'll get a run in, and Cabrera gets him on a 3-1 pitch.
Why would you mess with him?
I agree with you 100% that Molina going out there to try and talk to him.
Cabrera is locked in. I've watched him the last 3 days, and he's hit bullet after bullet all over the ballpark. Here he doubles into the gap very early in the game, and then a little soft liner in the infield allows him to score on a very strong throw by Rasmus, and then he hits another double. Here's a little fastball that looks like it wanted it off the plate. You can see where Molina was. You saw Molina's body language after the ball leaked right back over the heart of the plate. He got burned by Cabrera.
So especially with Clete Thomas, the left-hander, waiting on deck, and now Thomas is at the plate after the RBI double by Cabrera.
Well, they wanted to walk Cabrera there, but Gas just got too much of the plate on that 3-1 pitch.
Thomas rolls one off the glove of Gas. Going to be a tough play for Theriot. No chance. Thomas runs pretty well, and that'll keep the inning going.
And I concur. I think he did an outstanding job of saying that Molina went out there to tell the youngster, look, if you walk him, so be it. You got a lefty coming up here. Let's just, you know, even though it's a game, we're going to think it's a tight situation, or I'm going to help you make this ball come. But all of a sudden, a young guy, and you know, it's that fine line. You want to be a competitor, you want to challenge everybody, but there's a reason why these guys make the money they make.
For sure.
Now Brandon Inge with 2 outs.
Ooh,
There's that pickoff.
pickoff.
It's a pretty good one, apparently. Now Pujols throws to the plate, and he'll tag Cabrera out.
Apparently the memo wasn't given there to Clete.
He was picked clean at first base. Cabrera tried to score, and Pujols threw him out. Tigers get a run back. Tigers and Cardinals fans enjoying baseball here this afternoon as we approach opening day, just a couple of weeks away. Joker Marchant Stadium, another big crowd enjoying spring training baseball here this afternoon. Top of the 6th inning now in Lakeland, 8-3. The Cardinals on top of the Tigers, and there's that pickoff move you talk about, Al. This is a pretty good one.
Well, he is outstanding. This is the 3rd man he's already picked off this spring. So good. And then, you know, Albert, the president of mine, he knows he got a runner at 3rd base. He challenges, and Albert really has a good throwing arm. Get him at ease. But Gast is so good with that pickoff. Yesterday, they had him working on a side field with Jaime Garcia, trying to teach him that move from the left-hander.
Meanwhile, Daniel Schlereth comes in out of the bullpen now for Detroit. Schlereth missing a couple of weeks here in spring camp, but he is healthy again.
Former #1 draft choice of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He came over to the Tigers last year in the Max Scherzer deal from the Arizona Diamondbacks. As I mentioned, he's got a good fastball in the low 90s, and he's got a curveball that is tremendous. Really an unhittable curveball.
Yadier Molina, the first batter to face him.
And you'd have to figure, Mario, that he has a leg up at filling that spot vacated by Phil Koch very late in that Tigers bullpen to get some real good left-handers out.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why he was a little bit disturbed at the fact that he went out with an injury early in camp, but apparently has come back. And you know, he's got a great arm, Rod. We've seen it, saw it all of last year. Brad Thomas, I think, is on the club as well, and it's a pretty good duo of lefties in the bullpen.
Pitching a little bit earlier in this ball game, normally you would not see a Schlereth in the 6th inning, but when you want to see some of your better hitters in spring training, you've got to get some of these real good relievers in the ball game early to face
some of the guys that are going to be starters, because most of these starters for the Cardinals will be leaving after this at bat. So that's why Slayworth is pitching very early in this game this afternoon. There's that curveball.
And he almost got Molina looking.
Can you explain the Scherzer trade?
We like it. But I also liked Edwin Jackson too now.
Well, yes, I know, and he's bounced around a little bit.
Yeah, I liked Edwin Jackson too.
But Scherzer's a St. Louis kid, so we keep an eye on him, and what a bright future he has.
He had one of the best second halves of any of the pitchers in the major leagues last year. It didn't show up in the wins and losses because he didn't get a lot of run support. But as far as stuff and missing some bats, Scherzer was tremendous the second half of the year last year.
Edwin Jackson now with his 4th organization.
He is. He is.
Which is surprising, too, for
Yeah,
young
it is surprising, but I'm with you, Rod. I like Jackson a lot. I think he did a lot of good things in Detroit, and I think he's going to be a big part of the White Sox rotation. But what Scherzer did in the second half last year was just eye-popping after going down to the minor leagues. Here's the 2-2 to Molina. Yadier in the ball game has a sacrifice fly and an RBI. And sometimes when you get a catcher like Molina, Al, we kind of forget how important it is when you have as good a defensive catcher and a guy that can handle the staff as Yadier Molina.
Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan very tough on the catcher. They have to assume an awful lot of responsibility, and they just love Yadier Molina and the leadership he provides. Guys love throwing to him, but one of the reasons they went out and got Laird was because they've really worn out Yadi the last 2 years, and he's ended up with some knee problems late in the season.
And there is strike 3. Molina is out of there.
There's that curveball that Slayworth features. Pretty much a 2-pitch pitcher. Fastball in the low 90s, but he's got this knee buckling breaking ball. Anytime you see the knees buckle of a right-handed hitter against a left-handed breaking ball, that means it's a very nasty pitch, and those knees buckled there to Molina.
And it totally fooled one of the toughest to strike out in the National League, and he was fooled by that pitch.
There's John Jay. He is 0 for 2, reaching on an error and scoring in his last at bat.
That's going to be key for Slayworth. First pitch strikes out of that bullpen. Coming in against a tough lefty, you got to go strike 1. And when he's able to go strike 1, it allows him to get to that breaking ball, which is his bread and butter pitch. There it is. It's wicked.
See there, he kind of got away from it a little bit. He left it down and in, not where you want, but watch John Jay bails a little bit because it's cast it out, and then it was able to pull it down. John Jay's been shown the ability to hit left-handers pretty well as long as he takes them to left field. Nice guy, nice, like 4th or 5th outfielder.
Well, as you came into camp this year, Al, what were the big question marks for the St. Louis Cardinals as a club?
Well,
keep Albert healthy.
Along with Wainwright and Carpenter, but Tony La Russa loves competition, and yet he had very little this year. Who's going to be a backup infielder? Now that Punto is out, because he was going to be Mr. Versatile at all infield positions. John Jay and Alan Craig as platoon in right field when Berkman can't play. Who's your, Laird's going to be your backup, but they're a pretty set team. Who's going to be the second left-hander in the bullpen? Dennis Reyes has had that position the last couple of years, no longer with the club. Trevor Miller, very happy with.
3-2 on John Jay. And there is ball 4. It's a 1-out base runner. Well, I would imagine managers going into spring camp would prefer that their ball clubs are mostly set. I mean, there were times here in Detroit where it was open tryouts, back in 2003, Rod, you remember, where there were a lot of positions to fill, but boy, things have changed with Jim Leyland.
It means you've got a pretty good club. When you're only looking at your second base position and your backup outfielder for your final roster spots, maybe a couple of bullpen slots, that means you've got a pretty good core group, and they do have a very good core group.
Ryan Theriot, the hitter now, with 1 on and 1 out.
Schlereth having a difficult time of commanding that fastball here in this inning. Breaking ball has been no problem, but the fastball, he has not found a consistent arm slot which would allow him to throw the ball over the plate efficiently.
Repeatable delivery. Probably the biggest change from a pitching standpoint I see is young pitchers don't have the ability to spot their fastball.
So does he go to his breaking ball here? Because he can't find the fastball, and he's thrown some strikes with a breaking ball. Al, does he go to his breaking ball here?
In my mind, you've got to find the fastball, but you're trying to make a team.
Runner goes. Mirian's throw is high, and it's not in time.
That's such a good play right there by La Russa to give the steal sign there, because you know that Schlereth is concentrating on throwing a strike. He had forgotten all about the base runner. He gets a tremendous jump. Even though Mirian threw the ball right on the bag, he had no shot at throwing Jay out. Great jump, great time to run when there's a pitcher on the mound struggling with his command.
Maybe Tony was guessing it'd also be a breaking ball like you were, through the fastball, but up, an easy pitch to throw. But Jay, you were talking earlier, guys have good base runners, but they're not base stealers. It's an art.
And the 2-1. You played with some good base stealers in your day. Lou Brock was one of the greatest, obviously. Bake McBride, Templeton would steal some bases.
Sure, and then
you played on?
Willie Wilson.
Right.
I went over to Kansas City. Saw Vince Coleman throughout his career, broadcasting.
2-2. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Do you think we're getting back to that type of game now, Al, where speed has become a little bit more important?
I think it has evolved. As for some reason we aren't seeing as many home runs. And maybe the emphasis a little bit more on speed and that ability to get a man in scoring position.
3-2 is inside, and now Schlereth has walked back-to-back hitters. That'll put 2 aboard. Schlereth struck out the first batter he faced, Molina, but now he's run into some trouble.
Shane Robinson.
So Robinson for Rasmus, and here comes Rick Knapp. The big swing in this one, though. Albert Pujols blew this one open, a 6-run 4th inning with one mighty swing of the bat.
Well, Will came out of the bullpen in relief of Phil Coke with the bases loaded, nowhere to put Albert Pujols, and Albert got a breaking ball off the outside part of the plate and hooked it back to the pull field for a grand slam.
Meanwhile, Schlereth getting a talking to now from Rick Knapp, who tries to straighten him out here after back-to-back walks in the 6th inning.
It was kind of what Jim Leland said a couple of days ago. You've got to throw strikes if you're going to pitch for me. And there's no doubt that Schlereth has the stuff to throw it over the plate and get major league hitters out. He just has to do it.
I don't think Knapp had the tact that Bob Gibson had when we were down in Atlanta, but Bob had a young pitcher out there. He told him if there weren't 50,000 people here, I'd slap you to your knees.
Why does that not
That'll
surprise
get your
me?
attention.
Yeah, real quick. Real quick.
Shane Robinson, the batter, and he takes the ball up high. So Schlereth continues to struggle with the command here.
Shane isn't very big, but he's got a big heart, and we've seen him at the big league level the last couple of years, and just one of those guys that very small, but he don't tell him because he likes to play this game. He's pretty good at it.
Well, you had a guy a couple of years ago that was pretty small and had a big heart, and he went on to win the MVP of the World Series, and David Eckstein.
Sure.
So there is room in this game, I guess, for every type of individual. One of the things that we always see in spring training, got to get your sprints in.
Don't miss that.
You don't, do you?
No.
That's more of a jog than a sprint, obviously. Here's the 2-0.
David Eckstein, if you took the birds off the bat or whatever uniform he was wearing and you tried to put one word across his chest, that one word would be winner.
Agreed. And I'm sure he had a few people in his career and life telling him he couldn't do it. There's a strike. 3-1. Schlereth last year as a Tiger walked 10 in the big leagues in 18 innings. He also struck out 19. And there's another walk. And so load the bases. And Rod, you wonder what an outing like this does to a guy like Schlereth in terms of what Jim Leyland is thinking. You know, obviously, as we mentioned, we're about halfway through camp beyond that now. And so these innings become more important.
They are very important for him, but he did not have the same type of start that most of the Tigers relievers had because he had that hamstring injury. And you also just brought up some numbers, what Schlereth was able to do last year in that Tigers bullpen. And Jim, he had forgotten that. He knows that with Coke being in the rotation, Schlereth is the best possible replacement for him in that bullpen. So he's going to do everything possible to try to get him on track.
Guess who's coming up now again with the bases loaded? Albert Pujols. And he takes ball one.
Murray might have got crossed up there. At least it appeared that he got crossed up there. He was looking for a breaking ball, and Schlereth threw a fastball, which means that there's not a whole lot of concentration going on right now. And he's lucky that ball didn't hit him right in the chest.
Right. See that catcher kind of box a ball like that. It's a pretty good indication that he was looking for something else.
If you're looking for a fastball and then throw a breaking ball, as a catcher, you can make that adjustment.
Right.
But you cannot make the adjustment if you're looking for a breaking ball and a guy throws 90 miles an hour, throws you a fastball. You can't catch that ball.
Weight shift went there because he saw it going inside, but then just hit the body.
1-1 on Pujols.
Going back to walking people, the Cardinals have a young right-hander that we may see here pitch today, Joe Kelly. But in his last outing, he walked 5 straight. But they realize they like his ability and his arm, and you know, young players, you just have to be a little more patient.
Urian down to block that one, 2-1. What we have seen, especially in Detroit over the past 5 or 6 years, what throwing strikes can do when you watch a Minnesota Twins team pitch, and year after year they are among the best in throwing strikes and keeping walks down, and they continually win the Central Division.
That's one of the reasons why Rick Knapp is the pitching coach of the Detroit Tigers. He spent about 11 years as a minor league pitching coordinator in the Minnesota Twins organization before the Tigers gave him an opportunity to be the coach of this staff.
Meanwhile, it's 3-1 on Pujols.
As a hitter, is there anything that now that you're broadcast, you look back that you'd like to avoid? For me, it's walks.
Well, Schlereth would like to avoid some of these walks here, but has not been able to do it so far, and he's fallen behind 3-1 on Pujols. And there's ball 4. So for the second time here today, the Tigers pitching staff has walked in a run. Pujols gets his 5th RBI of the afternoon. Jim Leyland has apparently seen enough, and he will go to the bullpen. So Schlereth struggles in this one here today with 4 base on balls. The Tigers go to the pen, and we'll be back to Lakeland. So it's a 9-3 ball game here in Lakeland with the Cardinals adding another run. They're still in business here. They have the bases loaded and only 1 out. Albert Pujols is done for the afternoon. He will be lifted for a pinch runner. Daniel Descalso is at first base now. And David Freese hammers the first one foul out of play from Robbie Weinhardt.
Robbie Weinhardt looks like he has dropped about 20 pounds from last year, partner. He played in Puerto Rico briefly this offseason, but he looks like he's in pretty good shape.
He's in great shape, and I think you're right. He's lost a lot of weight.
I almost didn't recognize him when I first saw him when I got down here, as a matter of fact.
I guess the first question is, when you lose a lot of weight, is do you lose anything off the fastball? But you asked him that question.
He said no. He said he feels as good as he felt last year as far as the fastball is concerned. He pitched in spots last year in the big leagues where he really had a good 2-seam fastball. He kind of lost his way there for a short period, and the numbers got elevated, as they will do as a reliever when you're not getting a lot of innings. But Jim really liked his ability to get ground balls.
They want the appeal down at first. He went around. David Freese didn't like that call. And so there are 2 gone now.
He had a beef, too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that first base umpire has seen enough. It's not Larry Vanover.
No, it's not. The umpire rotation on our sheet apparently is incorrect. So here's Berkman now. This is the 8th man to bat in the inning. Strike 1 on Berkman. Berkman in the ball game is 0 for 3, couple of strikeouts and a ground out. Phil Koch started this one for Detroit. Wilk and then Schlereth followed. It's driven foul. Oh, and 2 on Berkman.
He's not looking at a left-hander. And he's not batting right-hander against a right-handed pitcher.
Well, he was batting lefty against the lefty Koch to start. And then Wilk.
Little hairline fracture in that bat.
Probably from throwing it.
Could be. You got to get another one.
But you know, you saw him when went to the plate. This is his first strikeout as he threw the bat, and first time he threw at Leland when he was sitting on the chair. Then he started trying to go after him. Another one. That's when he cracked the bat right there.
Rafael Belliard said, "Don't worry about it. My guns can handle that." 0-2 on Lance Berkman. Make it 1-2 now on Berkman. Lance Berkman has had a very good big league career. In fact, he's knocked in over 105 times in his career.
Bat speed has slowed down a little bit from those glory days in Houston, but I think he still will be a welcome addition.
He's a winner. He's a winner. That's for sure.
And you know, he's basically said, you know, everyone's concerned about my elbow, my knee, me playing right field. He said, I just want to see if I can still hit.
Those are pretty good numbers. 296 career average, 327 home runs, over 1,000 RBIs.
And the 2-2. Hard to second base. Rhymes knocks it down. And that is that for the Cardinals. They will get a run. They leave them loaded. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning. Now 9-3 St. Louis. Back here in Lakeland as we go to the bottom of the 6th inning, and Jim Leyland's squad down 9-3 now as we head to the home half of the 6th. And Joe Kelly is on now for the St. Louis Cardinals.
For the most career strikeouts.
Joe Kelly is the one I was talking about in his last outing. He walked 5 straight. On the spring, he's walked 6 with no strikeouts, but they really like his arm. Power arm, it's a young guy. He's got a 90-mile-an-hour sinker. But just trying to find that control.
Now, batting the Tigers, number 15, third baseman, Brandon Inge.
By the way, this copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Detroit Tigers and the St. Louis Cardinals. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Detroit Tigers and the St. Louis Cardinals. So here we go in the bottom of the 6th inning. And Joe Kelly goes to work against Brandon Inge, one of the Tigers starters, still in there. And the first pitch in there for a strike on Inge, who is 0 for 2 in this game, a ground out and a fly ball.
I know a lot of Tigers fans very happy to see Brandon Inge back in a Tigers uniform for the next couple of years. He was a free agent at the end of last season, and Brandon admitted he didn't know whether he would end up in a Tigers uniform again, but of course they re-signed him, and I'm sure a lot of Tigers fans very happy about that.
Inge, a 2-year deal with that option, and you kind of had the feeling, Rod, that it was going to get done because I think Brandon has meant a lot to this organization. He's been around a while.
He also made it known that he didn't want to go anywhere else. He makes his home in Detroit.
He cuts and misses. A boatload of changes for the St. Louis Cardinals. that we'll get to as we go along here. There's the 2-2, and it's swung on and missed. Inches out of there on strike.
There's that 94 mile per hour two-seam fastball. You can see why they like this young kid's arm. Wow. Take a look at the late bite, late movement, late life on this pitch. Are you kidding me?
He's got a chance to make this ball club. As they're still a little unsettling. He has pitched as a starter in the minor leagues and kind of looking for that long man.
Alex Avila is the batter now.
A lot of times when you walk 5 straight, you pitch your way right to the minor league camp, but they recognize that, you know, he's young, excitable, and he's got a great arm.
1 ball, 1 strike. Kelly only 22 years old, a 3rd-round pick of the Cardinals in 2009.
He's the only guy today that we have seen touch 95 on the radar gun, that's for sure.
Alex Avila today with a walk and a ground out. The 1-1. Joe Kelly played his college ball at UC Riverside. I don't know if you know this, Al, but he is a distant relative of George Machine Gun Kelly, the mobster. Just walk lightly around him if you like. Well, Avila rolls out 2 gone.
Well, that's why he's going to make the club.
He's throwing some bullets up there.
They don't want no relatives coming back.
Let's set that up on a tee for you, didn't it? Very nicely done. Here's Santiago with 2 outs, 9-3 in favor of the Cardinals. Strike 1 on Santiago. Last one touching 98. There's a bouncer back up the middle. Anderson ranging left will throw him out. Santiago is gone quick. Inning for Kelly as he mows down the Tigers. And we go to the top of the 7th inning here in Lakeland. 9-3 in favor of the Cardinals. Tigers about hit the Cards today, 8-6. But it's a warm afternoon here. The temperature's approaching 80 degrees here in Central Florida. Alan Craig will lead things off with the St. Louis Cardinals. The big blow today was the grand slam by Albert Pujols, and that highlighted a 6-run 4th inning, and that has been the difference in this one. That was hit off the young man Wilk out of the bullpen for the Tigers.
Alan Craig 2 years ago was the Cardinal minor league player of the year.
Shattered his bat, rolled slowly toward third. Danny Worth gobbles it up. Worth in for Brandon Inge down there at third base, 1 gone.
And Rod, I was going to ask you, in my mind, it almost, the question mark with Alan Craig is, can he play in a utility role? Can he play, you know, in a combo where he just has tremendous ability, but it looks like he's never hit off the bench and may struggle in that role.
If he could do it in any league, it would probably be better for him to do it in the National League where there's more double switches and you take pitchers out of games a lot earlier. That would allow him to get more at-bats versus playing in the American League where there's not a lot of double switches. You don't get pinch hit that much for. So if they're that fond of him, I'm sure Tony can find some ways to incorporate him to where he can get himself some at-bats, and they could see if he could be that super utility guy.
Here's Matt Carpenter getting his first at-bat of the game.
But it is very, very difficult to sit on the bench for 2, 3, 4 days in a row and then be called upon to go into a game and hit good major league pitching. It's very difficult to do.
Now this young man here, Matt Carpenter, has been really the talk of camp. And because of Punto being out for the first month, he has a legitimate shot to make the team because David Freese, is only going to play 2 out of every 3 games. Carpenter maybe can play a little bit of outfield, but he is a very good third baseman, very good for a young hitter. He has great plate discipline.
And the 1-2 in the air toward left field. Bosch on the move, and Carpenter retired 2 away. Looks like he has a nice left-handed swing.
He's hitting 400 for the camp too.
Pretty good. So Carpenter is out number 2.
Yadier Molina.
What did Molina do wrong that he's still in this game?
I was about to ask the same question.
He must have asked for another at-bat. Doesn't quite feel as comfortable today as he'd like to, and he said, I made the trip over here. I may as well play.
There's strike one.
That is Yachty. He's not going to beg out of a game. He's going to and try to get better.
Molina hits it hard to short. Santiago gobbles it up. And that is that. So Weinhardt has himself a 1-2-3 inning. Stretch time here in Lakeland. 9-3 Cardinals. Great day for baseball here in Lakeland. Mario Impemba, Al Raboski, Ron Allen from Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland, Florida. 9-3 in favor of the Cardinals here this afternoon. And another big crowd here in attendance to watch two storied franchises, Cardinals and Tigers. And the big bat for the Cardinals, the difference, the grand slam by Albert Pujols. Kelly is out there for another inning of work, and he was pretty impressive in the sixth. Kelly got him 1-2-3. Let's get you caught up on what has transpired here today as we check out our game summary. The Pujols grand slam in the third, highlighting a big 6-run inning. Cabrera 2 for 3 with a couple of doubles. Carpenter 4 innings, 5 hits. He threw 59 pitches, and of course that was the big story coming in for Cardinal fans here today, is to see how Carpenter would react after missing a couple of starts. That grand slam, by the way, was in the 4th inning, not the 3rd. The 6-run 4th. John Murian leads it off for the Tigers.
Pujols grand slam kind of overshadowed a pretty good day from Rasmus.
Absolutely.
And Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, Rasmus with a homer and a double, and Cabrera a couple of doubles. A couple of big wheels in the offense starting to click now, and Pujols and Cabrera. 1 ball, 1 strike on John Murian.
I think even Tiger fans may enjoy an upcoming 60 Minutes episode on Albert Pujols.
Chopped slowly left side of the infield. And Murian is out, 1 gone.
Very little bit is going to be about baseball.
Really?
Mostly about his humanitarian endeavors and just what he is, just the person.
He's done quite a bit in the community for what he did.
Unbelievable what he does for Down syndrome, and he has about 140 events, not one, 140 events for Down syndrome children. And then he goes back to his native land in the Dominican and doesn't go to San Domingo or, you know, the big cities. He goes into the little villages of just immense poverty and tries to do what he can.
Good for Albert. Casper Wells is the batter here with 1 out. It's been a big spring for Casper, trying to make this club as well, hitting .391. You're right, he showed some power last year.
He's one of those guys that's in the mix as well as far as that outfield spot is concerned. But one of the things that kind of hurts Wells that doesn't hurt the other guys in Bosch and also Cleat Thomas, the fact that he bats right-handed. And the Tigers have quite a few right-handers already in the everyday lineup. With Jackson in center field, Ordonez, Cabrera. You got Inge, you got Peralta. They all swing from the right side. Sizemore more than likely is going to be the second baseman, the right-handed as well. So the Tigers might need to balance that out with somebody from the left side off that bench, and that doesn't work well for Wells. But he has had a very good spring. I watched him the other day. He was 4 for 4 with a home run and a few doubles.
That was in Sarasota, right?
Yes.
There's a walk to Wells. And Casper's out.
Jim Leland told me there's going to be some disappointed outfielders.
There's still only so many spots. Obviously, one spot right now available for Abram is indeed the left fielder, which we expect will be the case. And it's always good to have options, though, if you're a manager. But we're about a week or so away from Jim Leland making some of those decisions. Antonio La Russa as well. The cuts that you make early in camp, nobody's really upset with you because you probably know it's coming. But the later you get in camp, some guys, you know, get a little bit disappointed and upset.
Well, somebody's not going to make the team that's very deserving of making the team, and that's what happens when you've got a quality club and a club that's expected to contend in your division, as the Tigers are.
Will Rhymes with 1 out. ball, 1 strike on Rhymes. Of course, the Tigers have their head honchos watching from the seats. There's David Dombrowski right in front of him. Al Avila.
John Westhoff seated right behind David Dombrowski.
Two and 1 on Rhymes. Big year for everybody really involved. David Dombrowski knows that. Jim Leland knows that. And the Tigers again have put together a very beefy payroll. And the 2-1. 2-2 on Rhymes.
Well, Mike Ilitch is one of the best owners in all of professional sports. And the great fans of Detroit know that. And he is going to give his general manager all the resources to put the best possible team on the field to get a championship. And that's what he's allowed David Dombrowski to do. Mike Ilitch is a tremendous owner.
Where's your payroll?
It's at about 100 million. It's close to that this year. The 2-2 is rolled foul.
They had some money come off the books last year, and they spent it wisely, and they spent it in a hurry. They went out and they acquired Benoit, who was a free agent, gave him a 3-year deal. Then they also got Victor Martinez as a free agent. And had they not acted so quickly with the dollar signs that were being thrown out later on, the guys like Worth and some of the other guys, they may not have been able to acquire Martinez and Benoit for the dollars that they were able to get them at. They spent that money wisely, and they spent it early. Also, Brad Penny. They signed Brad Penny, and Penny's pitching well this spring as well.
Brad's going to pitch well as long as he's healthy.
Hit hard back up the middle. Flip to second one. This should be 2. Nobody pulled him off the bag, and Rhymes is set.
It's Vasquez playing shortstop. Got a good feed from Descalzo, and Vasquez, the veteran infielder, trying to show that he can solidify and be a backup for Terrio until you get Punto back.
Well, even though Rhymes wasn't well, this is a double play that should be turned.
And you talked about that in the first inning.
I had one of Dave McKay was talking about. He says, the Cardinals finished 5 games behind, the Cincinnati Reds. And how many times did we see double plays that were not turned, or just that routine out that really was a big story in this ball game. Didn't get it out at first base and then come back to haunt the Tigers. But just make the routine plays and you'll win.
Bosch hitting with 2 outs. 9-3 Cardinals. We're in the bottom of the 7th. Hammered to left center field, and that ball will drop. And they'll get by and go to the warning track. Rhymes coming to third. They're going to send him home. Here comes a relay to the plate. The slide. He is safe at home plate. Rhymes ahead of the tag of Molina.
Well, Rhymes is trying to say, I'm right there with the big boys at his day. The ball got by Shane Robinson. And then Vasquez, when he took that throw, there was a slight hesitation. And he gets the ball after Robinson tracks it down. Watch the shortstop get this ball, and just there, that hesitation, instead of anticipating that there's going to be a play at the plate, allowed him to be safe.
It's also a play that if you're playing in, say, Detroit, and you're playing the Cardinals, if you've got 30,000 people in the stands, they will tell you what that base runner's doing. So if you're the shortstop in that situation, you hear the crowd roaring because Rhymes is going to score. And as a middle infielder, that will tell you what you need to do with that baseball when you get it in your glove.
4th run of the game for the Tigers, 9-4 game. Scott Thorman, the batter now. Thorman, a former National Leaguer with the Atlanta Braves. Kelly's 0-1. Make it 0-2 on Thorman.
Remember him, kind of a little bit of a cup of coffee with Atlanta. Guy has big numbers in the minor leagues, home run numbers, but probably making contact's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Talked to him a little bit yesterday, and he spent a lot of time in the minor leagues, the Royals, Atlanta. He's one of those guys that's been a career minor league player, just kind of trying to find that last opportunity to possibly make a club.
Well, he's played some first base, some outfield. Thorman in the big leagues last in 2007 with Atlanta. Hit 11 home runs in 120 games. 0-2. Outside, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Come up, you have success, then a league of adjustments. Pitchers make adjustments, they find your weakness, and then you've got to counter. Probably the reason you wasn't able to, and back in the minor leagues.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Kelly pitched in A ball last year in the Midwest League at Quad Cities. He was 6-8. 3rd round pick back in 09 of the Cardinals. It's fouled straight back.
That's one thing you're seeing a lot more of these days. You're seeing guys that pitch in A ball, and the next season they're pitching in the big leagues because they've got power arms. It wasn't like that 10, 15 years ago. Guys went through that natural progression, regardless of what your numbers were, regardless of what the need was in the major leagues. You were going to go to Double-A, and then you might go to the big leagues from Double-A. But we see guys going from A ball to the big leagues these days.
One of his teammates was former #1 draft pick 2 years ago, Shelby Miller, and he was the Cardinals' minor league pitcher of the year, a high school draft, and they had to send him out right at the beginning so he didn't make the team.
3-2. And there's ball 4.
People laugh, but that happens. I remember my first couple of years. I signed obviously in '77 with the White Sox, but my first couple of years on the major league roster, when I would go to spring training, they would get certain guys out of spring training that very first week or that second week because they didn't want you to make the team. They didn't want you to show up. They didn't want the fans to see how well you were doing. So you go down to the minor leagues, and guys that you were playing better than, they stayed in the big leagues, and it made you wonder, but it's a valid point.
Well, and part of it is for the longevity, that they know this kid has the potential to be a #1 starter. So let him get his experience in the minor leagues. Let him get his lumps and the learning curve down there. And probably 2012, next spring training, we'll be looking at him as a guy that'll be on the bubble. You hope he doesn't make the team because another year, really a AAA. He'll be probably Double-A this year. Probably second half go to AAA, but you really do need that extra time down there you just keep your fingers crossed you don't hurt yourself.
Well, you got to stretch them out, too. When you've got a young pitcher, you know he's going to be a starter in the minor leagues. There's not enough innings for them in big league camp, so you get them down to the minor leagues and you get them with their teammates, and you stretch them out and you get them ready for the season.
Getting the ball every 5 days. We're up here. You'd be lucky if you got a couple innings every 5 days.
Lee Thomas, the batter here with 2 outs. Kelly having trouble pitching through the 7th.
I know the Tigers did that, yesterday with Oliver and Turner. Both. Didn't they both get sent out yesterday?
They did.
2 real good young prospects the Tigers have in their organization. Pitching prospects.
Well, you think back to the '06 season, Rod, when Verlander and Zamaya came up, and Jim Leland has always been a guy that's not afraid to bring youngsters to the big leagues. Porcello got here quickly.
We didn't have nearly the talent then that we do now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
both those guys pitched their way onto the roster that spring. They were clearly 2 of the better 12 that they had in camp that year.
Wave and a miss, 1-2.
You could bring, even on a good club, it's tough to bring more than one, young player along. And it's one thing if you're trying to win every year. Every manager wants the veteran guys, but it's tough to bring that young kid along and make sure that he keeps on progressing.
1-2, the count stays on Cleat Thomas. A couple of RBIs today for Thomas, a couple of hits as well.
Rod, there's the old saying that it's easy to get to the big leagues, it's hard to stay, and young kids don't understand. You really don't want to come to the big leagues until you have a defined role, where you're going to be either that #1 pinch hitter, but ideally you're going to be a regular.
And he got him straight 3. Thomas is out of there, and that ends the inning. Tigers get a run back. We'll go to the 8th here in Lakeland, Florida. 9-4 St. Louis. we go to the top of the 8th inning. It is a 9-4 ball game. John Jay will lead it off for the St. Louis Cardinals. 75th season the Tigers have been associated with the city of Lakeland, Florida. That is the longest relationship of any team with a city here in Florida. It's been a deep and rich history. As Jay stands in facing a new Tigers pitcher, Enrique Gonzalez.
Cardinals will be starting their 120th overall season, 14th in Jupiter after 50+ years in St. Petersburg.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. Jupiter's a nice complex as well.
Very nice. Yeah. Share it with the Florida Marlins, but with the Dodgers leaving now and Baltimore no longer, they'd like to have a few more teams in Florida.
The 0-2 is outside. I guess, Rod, one of the and you live out in Arizona. One of the things that is great about Arizona is the travel when you talk about spring training.
Yes, I mean, your furthest trip is probably about an hour away. And that is if you run into traffic. But what Arizona allows you to do if you're a manager.
Hit hard to second base. Grimes throws him out.
It allows you to some of your guys to stay back and get some work in your own complex, your own weight room, and do whatever you want to do. The coaches can stay back and get some extra work, a B game, and then they can still get to the complex of where they need to go at 1 o'clock. You can't do that here in Florida because some of your trips are so lengthy. But you can get a lot of work done in Arizona because of the closeness of the facilities.
Here's Adron Chambers to bat now for St. Louis, getting his first at bat of the game.
It's kind of an old throwback. The old Cardinal days when the running Redbirds. Here's a young man who is an exceptional athlete, just really learning the arts of playing baseball. They're very excited about the upside, and they're saying they would love to see this kid if we had the turf.
See, Mario brought that up earlier today when we were talking about the way the game has changed or starting to change, where general managers and managers are looking for more athletic players, guys that can really run, guys that can steal some bases. But in order for you to do that, you're going to have to get back into the basketball gyms. You're going to have to go to some of the football games on Friday nights. You're going to have to find some of those athletes like Chambers, and then you hope that they turn into good baseball players. Very athletic, not baseball savvy yet, but you're willing to make that investment. And if they don't do that, then they're not going to get that athleticism that they had with some of those teams back in the 80s when you had those St. Louis Cardinals teams.
Chambers is out. Well, wasn't Carl Crawford considered to be really raw when he got into professional baseball?
Well, he was going on a basketball scholarship somewhere and a football scholarship to a different school, and obviously he got drafted in baseball. So he was very raw from a baseball standpoint, but very athletic.
Shane Robinson will bat now with 2 outs. Gonzalez looking for the 1-2-3 inning for Detroit.
There used to be a day when some of the scouting directors, they would go to the Friday night football games to find the real good athletes. They would go to the basketball gym and watch a lot of the basketball games, knowing that that player wasn't a good baseball player at the time, but certain intangibles led them to draft some of those players.
Well, you're a little young, but the Kansas City Royals were very unique when they started the academy. And basically, they went around the country scouring for just the pure athlete that didn't even know how to play baseball. But one thing they judged was a lot on running speed, and they had a conjunction with a junior college, so but it became so costly. But now every ball club has that same type of setup in the Latin American countries, where they teach, have the academy, teach them baseball all day, but also take care of their academics.
Great point.
That's in the air, shallow left field. Bosch coming on, staring into the sunlight. And Gonzalez has himself a 1-2-3 inning. So we're headed to the bottom of the 8th. Still 9-4 St. Louis. It's the bottom of the 8th inning, 9-4 in favor of St. Louis. And we have a new pitcher on now for the Cardinals. It's Eduardo Sanchez. He will take over for the Redbirds. What do you got, Mr. Sanchez?
He's got another very, very capable arm, a little inconsistent with his command, But it's one that if you just rate his pure stuff, they're very high, but you know, does he throw enough strikes to have that consistency?
So Sanchez will take over for the Cardinals. Kelly pitched 2 innings. As you look at the numbers this spring, only 4 innings of work so far for Sanchez. Danny Worth will lead it off, then Ryan Rayburn to follow. Tigers fell behind courtesy of a 6-run 4th inning for the St. Louis Cardinals. And Dave Duncan, obviously his main mission today was to make sure that Chris Carpenter, today's starter for the Cardinals, was okay coming off a hamstring injury. And it was a pretty good day for Carpenter. So here's Worth getting his first at-bat of the afternoon.
Tigers love Danny Worth's glove. Yeah, the only question is whether he can hit major league pitching, and Jim Leyland has said as much. Tremendous glove, real good arm, real good range, but the bat is a little bit hot behind the glove right now.
And Worth fouls off the first pitch. And I guess, Rod, he's getting to the point in his career now where he's 25 years old. He's spent 5 years in the organization. This will be his 6th season now. And, you know, as a player, when you get to be in your mid-20s, still looking for that first full-time major league opportunity, you start to wonder a little bit.
You do start to wonder, but that's when you dig a little bit deeper. And you start to realize if this is what you really want to do for the rest of your career, then you've got to make those necessary adjustments. You've got to get a little bit stronger. You've got to get in the weight room, as Danny Worth did last year. There in particular, 6'1", 185. But for whatever reason, offensively just has not really gotten to the point which would allow him to play every day at this level, or even back up right now, because he can't do what Santiago does. We talked about Ramon Santiago earlier in the telecast, and the fact that he can play 3 infield positions and sit on the bench for 3 days and come off the bench in a switch hitting capacity and do a good job for you.
Swing and a miss. 2-2 on Worth.
Very awkward swing there for a 2-1 count, which is a fastball count.
Well, they say Sanchez has a very good slider. And, you know, he was the closer at Double-A before being promoted to Memphis Triple-A.
Two and two, the count remains.
He looks a little bit like Frankie Rodriguez on the mound in the way that
Yes.
he kind of stands, and the way that he kind of holds his glove, and the way that he kind of does what he does. Obviously, that might be a guy that he's patterned himself after.
He's 22 from Venezuela.
Worth stays alive.
Venezuela has been kind of the hotbed of professional big league players lately. It used to be Dominican Republic, and a lot of the kids that were coming out of Dominican were getting to the big leagues, but now Venezuela appears to be taking over that.
Venezuela's been very kind to the Tigers. That is for certain. The 2-2. Swing and a miss. Worth goes down. First out of the inning. First strikeout for Sanchez. Ryan Rayburn will bat.
Now heading to the Tigers, number 25.
The political turmoil in Venezuela, that's going to have a bearing. I think the Cardinals shut down their Venezuelan academy. Moved those kids over to the Dominican academy.
Rayburn getting his first at bat. By the way, congratulations to Ryan and his wife Suzanne. They a couple of days ago had a little baby girl, Tatum Faith, 6 pounds 4 ounces.
You see Rayburn's numbers: 315, 13 home runs, and 46 driven in the second half of the season. That's why many believe that he is the starting left fielder once the Tigers start their season on the 31st of March in New York.
What did he do last year, Rod, in the second half that you saw that got him back on track?
Confidence. It just appeared that for whatever reason in the first half of the season, Rayburn had very little confidence. And also, when you're a role player, you don't get that many opportunities to play early in the season because all your veteran players and all your everyday guys, they're fresh. But for whatever reason, the second half of the year, there were a couple of injuries. Brennan Bosch started to struggle a little bit. Rayburn got plenty of at-bats, and with each at-bat, he just took off. He had a sensational second half last year.
And Jim Leland has always liked Ryan Rayburn. In the first year of a 2-year deal that he signed this past offseason. 3-1 pitch. Make it 3-2 now on Rayburn.
And they usually don't give you 2-year contracts unless they anticipate you being a starter.
Well, Tigers camp has certainly been full of outfielders that have gotten a chance to play at the big league level. Young guys that have produced. We saw Wells come up, Bosch come up last year and do well. Cleet Thomas coming off the injury. We know he can play at the big league level. That missed inside, and Rayburn gets a walk. One on, one out. He is Argenis Diaz. He will bat. Tigers got a couple of runs in the first. They also got a run in the 5th and one in the 7th. 6 for the Redbirds in the 4th inning. Diaz rips one foul back out of play. Diaz, another one of those young players out of Venezuela. 24 years old.
Probably know each other from the Venezuelan league. Sanchez still makes his home in the offseason in Venezuela. He should be slated for Memphis this year.
Oh, 0-2. We talked a little bit earlier, Al, about the Central Division of the American League. How about the National League? The Milwaukee Brewers, they can prove themselves, especially in the rotation, although Greinke will start the season on the DL, but Cincinnati won it last year, so there should be a good dogfight as well in the National League Central.
Well, you know Sean Markham, and that's going to be a big addition for Milwaukee. So they've got 3 pretty good starters once they get Greinke back, go along with that very good offensive team. Cincinnati, the young players are going to be much, another year of experience. They're going to be very hungry. Even the Cubs have helped themselves with Garza. So the Cardinals were very odd last year. They handled the good teams. They played over 500 against the winning teams. Matter of fact, they were 12-6 against Cincinnati, but they were 1 game under 500 against the sub 500 teams. And that, if they just would have played, any kind of baseball against them, they would have walked away with it.
1-2 on Diaz. And there is strike 3, close enough.
That's kind of like what the Tigers did last year. A very good first half of the season. They were in first place. They were right in the thick of things. But for whatever reason, the second half of the year for the Tigers, they couldn't win a game on the road. They really struggled away from Comerica Park last year. Very good home record, but just could not win games on the road. And at the end of the day, that's why they finished 81-81.
Now, speaking of home and road, one of the things, Al, is we've had a chance to come to St. Louis now with interleague play, is the heat that you have to deal with in the middle of the summer. And that's something that obviously the teams don't have to deal with, that have to adjust to when they come to St. Louis. The Cardinals have been able to play through that.
Yes, and I think part of it's conditioning. A lot of it's psychological. You just go out there and you don't dwell on how hot it is. You just talk about, hydrating and being ready to play, and let the other team comment on how hot it is. But
here's Murian, the batter, and he fouls this one back out of play.
Playing in the National League when you had all the AstroTurf fields.
Right.
Yes, it was extremely hot in St. Louis, but no hotter than Cincinnati or
Kansas City, Pittsburgh,
yeah.
Philadelphia.
They weren't bad, but you had the turf to deal with, and it's just part of the game. I asked Dave Duncan one time. I said, "How do we play on turf at 140 degrees?" And we didn't know any better.
Here's the 0-2 pitch coming up to Murian. bats off the inside part of the plate. 1-2.
Last couple of right-handers the Cardinals have run out there have got some pretty good arms, Kelly. Now this youngster's got a really nice firm fastball, 94 to 96.
And that's what the Cardinals are very excited about, because they got, they kind of got into a pattern, and it was more of trying to find that spot starter, or that guy would come up in the rotation, and he really couldn't blow anybody away, so he couldn't make any mistakes, and that's hard to pitch that way. You know, at least if you're throwing in the mid-90s, you can get away with some of your mistakes. You're throwing 86 that same pitch, it's going to be hit.
In the air to center field, hit well, but playable, and that is that for the Tigers. No runs, they get a walk, leave a man, and we travel to the 9th inning here in Lakeland, Florida, 9-4 St. Louis.
Welcome to the area of Local Martin Stadium. Time of our wonderful anniversary.
Back here in Lakeland as we go to the top of the 9th inning. Cardinals 9, Tigers 4. Mario and Pemba back at the ballpark, along with Al Raboski of Fox Sports Midwest and Rod Allen, Fox Sports Detroit. It has been a day in which the Cardinals bats have been booming. Actually, one big bat, and that was Albert Pujols' grand slam. The Tigers find themselves down by 5 runs as we go to the 9th inning. Gonzalez back to the hill.
Now that family looked like it was having a good time out there. Mom and dad, sister and brother, some ice cream, hot dogs. Out on the berm, that's what it's all about.
It is hard not to have a good time here in spring training. And you talked about this a little bit earlier, Rod. It allows you to, I think, get a little bit closer to the players, which is one thing that is different about spring training in the regular season. Autographs are easier.
Special time. And as you mentioned earlier, 75th anniversary here, Tigers in Lakeland. Very special relationship here with the city of Lakeland.
It's a bouncing ball to the right side. Thorman has it. And one away. Descalso is out. And bring up Vasquez. Enrique pitched in the 8th inning, had a 1-2-3 frame, and now he's retired 4 straight.
Enrique Gonzalez is a nice insurance policy for the Tigers. And more than likely, he doesn't make the 25-man roster because they're so deep in right-handed power arms at the back end. But if he goes down to the minor leagues, they know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if someone goes down with an injury, Gonzalez is one guy they can call up that's not afraid to pitch in the big leagues. He will throw some strikes. He will get you some outs.
Cardinals are similar, where they have a couple pitchers that Lance Lynn comes to mind, you know, that 2 years ago was the Cardinal pitcher, minor league pitcher of the year. Had a very good season last year at AAA. Very durable. He's made 61 starts the last 2 seasons. You know, and you're playing only, you know, 1 less month in the minor leagues, so he's very durable. But he probably will have to go to Memphis and be that insurance policy if one of the starters goes down.
When you start to build your AAA team, not your big league team, when you start to look at what you're going to have in AAA, you have to bring some guys to play on your AAA team. One, that are good guys, that are good leaders, that are not going to drag down the younger kids that are coming up to AAA too because they're disgruntled, because they're not in the major leagues, but good guys like a Gonzalez that's willing to help some of the younger kids get to the big leagues. So you don't want the guys that are disgruntled, but you need to have those insurance policy guys in the minor leagues that if someone goes down, you can call them up.
And isn't that the tricky part of constructing your organization?
No question about it.
You talk about the different attitudes that guys will have in the minor leagues. Mark Hamilton, the batter here, with 1 on, 1 out. And in a 9-4 ball game here, they play behind the runner at first base, Vasquez.
Going to be a new manager in Toledo this year for the first time in a long, long time. Toledo Mud Hens. Larry Parrish went to the big leagues with Freddie Gonzalez in Atlanta. Phil Nevin, who's only managed 1 year in pro ball, is going to be the AAA manager this year.
I've known Phil Nevin since his first year in professional baseball in the early 90s, and he will bring some fire to that Toledo team, I can guarantee you.
He had some nice years in a Tiger uniform.
Good player. Former #1 pick of the Astros.
#1 pick in the country.
Right.
Golden Spikes Award winner at Florida State, not Fullerton
Cal
State,
State
Cal
Fullerton.
State Fullerton, yeah. And he was managing an independent league
He
a couple
was.
years ago.
Orange County.
Jim Edmonds and I went to go see.
And Jim Edmonds
Jimmy,
retiring this year.
Yeah, Jimmy was invited to spring training, but he's had an Achilles problem and just couldn't answer the bell. But I'm train of thought, but former Angel that played with the Cardinals a couple years ago. And he was on that team with Phil Nevin, and Jim and I went down to see him. Spezio.
Oh, Scott Spezio,
Yeah,
yeah.
Spezio.
One of the heroes of the 2002 World Series.
Damian Jackson also was on that team.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Robert Fick. He had some players.
Yeah.
He had some
They were
players.
playing in Southern California.
What did he lose with that team?
I don't
Did he-
know. You know, he had some players,
They
though.
couldn't play anymore. That's
Good answer.
They used to play for the love of the game, then they became playing for the money.
There's a line drive to left and a base hit for Kazana. 2 on now with 2 outs.
And I saw Larry Parrish yesterday or 2 days ago. I talked to him. Glad to see him back in the big leagues.
What a likable guy, and he had always talked about how he loved managing in Toledo.
He was a tremendous manager there.
Here's Matt Carpenter.
Carpenter, one of those old school guys, Al. No bat
No
glove.
bag gloves. Mine's Cardinal fans a little bit. John Mabry, one of their favorites. The Carpenter has really has opened up some eyes, and
There is a likeness there with John Mabry, isn't there?
in the build a little bit. John didn't. He's a good guy. So is John, and say for a young hitter, has great plate discipline.
Here's the 1-0 from Gonzalez. 2 balls and no strikes. Enrique had retired 4 straight in his relief effort. Then he hit a batter, and 1 out later, the single by Kazana.
One thing that Cardinal fans or baseball fans in general will appreciate with Carpenter, he sprints off the field. First one in the dugout. He takes pride in being that one. Never embarrass yourself if you hustle.
Never.
3-0 on Carpenter. Tony Cruz would be next. He's on deck. And there is ball 4. So all of a sudden now that's going to load him up for the Cardinals.
There's some of that plate discipline we were talking about, Al.
All right, the Cardinals number 80, Tony Cruz.
So here's Tony Cruz.
Young catcher in the minor league system that Mark McGuire was saying that he likes his potential.
Well, the Tigers last year drafted 3 catchers in the top 8 rounds, among them Patrick Leland, Jim's son. But I think over the past decade or so, there really has been a dearth of guys that have been really good quality catchers coming up through the minor leagues. And it's such a difficult position, I think, sometimes to fill.
I used to say the quickest way to the big leagues was being a catcher, but when you got Molina, that's a roadblock.
Yeah. 0-1 on Cruz. One ball and 1 strike.
Last few years, Molina catches virtually every day, but his knees have kind of given out late in the season. So with Jason LaRue retiring, they felt that Gerald Laird was the best defensive catcher available, and maybe more importantly, the best guy that would understand that you're number 2. And that's a big factor too.
1-2 now on Cruz.
You also have to believe that the relationship between Jim Leland and Tony La Russa, and Jim probably told Tony how much he respected Laird and his playing ability, his catching ability, his throwing ability.
And as you mentioned, Jim told you he probably didn't hit as well as he should have last year. So that's probably a reason why he's wearing a Cardinals uniform. He was endorsed by Jim Leland.
No doubt, because I saw them talk, and just saw Jimmy talk to Larry.
So we've played 8.5 as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning here in Lakeland, Florida. It's all Cardinals today. Last call for the Tigers now as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning here at Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland, Florida. The Tigers and the Cardinals doing battle here this afternoon. 9-4 in favor of the Cardinals. And of course the berm out in left field is well, it's thinning out right now, but at the beginning of the game it was really full. But there are still some hardy souls catching some sun. Sticking around for this one to the very end. We have some changes now for the Cardinals. They have a new pitcher on. It's left-hander Brian Talent, the former Toronto Blue Jay. He'll take over here in the 9th inning. And he will face Casper Wells to lead things off.
Contract they gave Talent, you'd have to believe that they, in their mind, they want him to be the second left-hander. It's not impressive with his stuff, but he got a little late movement on a cutter. The catchers like, they like catching him, and they've said good words to Dave Duncan, but not exactly going to overwhelm you, is it?
No, he had some success in Toronto, though. They had some real good bullpens in Toronto, and they were all very complimentary of one another, and Talent was a part of that bullpen. Very good pitching staff they had in Toronto.
2-0 is swung on and missed. Well, Talent last year began the season in the Toronto rotation. He made 5 starts and ended up making 34 appearances overall. The rest of those out of the bullpen.
He gave up 20 home runs in just 77 innings. That's an alarming rate.
That ball does fly to Toronto, though.
Oh, boy,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
And I mean, there are things like that, and they feel that he matches up. He'll be a left-hander that will be a specialist. And they felt his lefty-lefty matchups were good.
And Wells opens up the bottom of the 9th with a walk.
Well, he'll get a chance to show that because he's going to see a couple of left-handers here in Rhymes and Brennan Bosch.
Here is Rhymes. He's had a nice day.
This is the time of spring where managers like La Russa and also Jim Leland, they start to get in a little bit more game mode. Last couple of weeks of spring training, they'll put on a sacrifice bunt. They'll call some pitch outs. They'll call different things that they would do during the regular season just to get some of the players in tune with how they may want to manage during the course of the year.
Strike one on Rhymes.
And probably by this weekend, Tony will tell his relievers, now I'm going to use you like I'm going to use you in game situations. So be ready, and I'm going to have a quicker hook. No longer are we just looking at guys and trying to get a read on them.
Back up the middle into center. That's a base hit, and the big day for Will Rhymes just got a little bit bigger. It's his 3rd hit. Tigers making some noise here in the bottom of the 9th.
He's had a real nice, quiet swing today. Not trying to do a whole lot. He's not very big in stature, which means he's not going to hit for power. Just trying to play pepper with the baseball, and he's done it very nicely here today.
Try to stay within yourself.
I told you I was talking to Will yesterday, and he was a little disappointed in the numbers that he had this year. And I said, you hit 300 in the big leagues last year and almost 200 at bats. You can do this. Forget about all the rest of the stuff in the spring and just go out and have a little fun and play the game the way that you know that you're capable of playing. Obviously, he's in a battle for second base for the first time in his career, trying to make a big league team.
Looks awfully relaxed today as Brennan Bosch stands in now with 2 on.
Brennan's last at-bat was by far his best at-bat of the afternoon. He doubled in the left center field gap.
That hit by Rhymes, by the way, the 10th of the afternoon for the Tigers offense. Bender that drops in for a strike.
.337 batting average last year for Bosch against left-handed pitching. 15 home runs.
You like that last pitch back.
That little hanging breaking ball.
Hanging breaking ball.
Now 1-2 on Brennan.
Just enough to get in on the hands, but see, he's got a little cutter, but I don't see that real sweeping breaking ball that how he's going to be that left-handed specialist.
Right.
Talent, you were talking about all the home runs he gave up last year. Of the 20, 13 came in relief, which was the third highest total among major league relievers. So the long ball certainly was not a part of his arsenal that he wanted last year. The 1-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. An awkward swing for Bosch, and he got him on strikes.
The cutter there. Straight fastball.
The first out of the inning, and that'll bring up
Now
Thorman.
the Tigers, number 65, Scott Thorman.
Tigers continue their spring schedule tomorrow with Minnesota here in Lakeland. Cardinals have the Marlins tomorrow. That's rolled foul right behind Tom Brookins in the coaching box at first base. 0-1 on Thorman. He replaced Cabrera, and Miguel had a big day today, Rod. A couple of doubles and an RBI, and it seems like he's starting to round into form now.
He's driving that ball to center field. He's also driving that ball to right center field, which is a telltale sign for a guy like Cabrera getting locked in. And they were a little concerned when the big fella got to spring training and the numbers were down, and of course he made news for all the wrong reasons before he got here. But the team has welcomed him with open arms, and he appears to be healthy. He appears to be conversational, and he appears to be having a good time, which is the most important thing.
2-1 on Thorman. Well, we kind of billed it as a battle of the two best hitters in the big leagues, and Albert Pujols did his work as well today with a grand slam home run that kind of broke this game open. So both Cabrera and Pujols with good days. 2-2 on Thorman.
And Tigers, from a pitching standpoint, were due for one of these days. They came into action today with one of the better pitching staffs in all of spring training. But lots of base on balls today. Too many, to be exact, and I'm sure Jim will talk about that after the game.
Yeah, their club ERA was 2.62 so far in camp, which was the best here in spring training. But you talk about the walks, and that really was something that is a black mark on the score sheet today. Two on Thorman.
Saying earlier, looking back on my career, if I look back and wanted to change one thing, I'd say, why did I ever walk anyone? Nothing good can ever
Become of it? Yeah.
Oh.
No, but there were times where you pitched around certain guys to get to left-handers, weren't there?
Nope. I was going right at you. 'Cause I'd have enough trouble walking. You know, I'd walk you on my own. Matter of fact, I one time told Red, I said I'd rather face Dave Kingman. You know, I want to face Dave Kingman and face him, and because Cranepool was on deck here, left-handed hitter.
Right.
But he was, you know, he's a little punching. He was a big guy, but he just muscled over the infield. So I thought he could do me more harm than a free swing.
Free swinger, yeah.
Now batting the
Coach
Tigers,
Kingman certainly was the definition of.
Yes, he was.
Here's Clee Thomas now with 2 outs in the ninth. Tigers down to their final out. Talbot trying to close this one down for the Cardinals.
Big Dave Kingman will strike out 3 times in a game, but that 4th time he might hit one 500 feet.
I was off the starter.
Thomas fouls one back. Cleat's kind of been one of the forgotten guys, Rod, in terms of all the outfielders because of the microfracture surgery he had last year, but he's shown that he can hit big league pitching.
He's a good baseball player. And he can play all three outfield positions. He runs well. He's got a real good arm. Slasher type hitter, not a lot of power, but a good baseball player.
High fly ball, right field. Deep to the warning track in front of the wall for the final out of the game. That ball just kept going. Clete Thomas falls a little bit short, and the Cardinals will put this one in the win column today. 9-4 final score. Back with more from Lakeland, Florida. There's your final score, 9-4 in favor of the Cardinals. And here today, I guess the big story for the Cards, Al, was would Chris Carpenter bounce back? Looked pretty good today.
Yes, he did. I mean, it wasn't razor sharp, but he got his work in. It's progress, and I don't see any reason why we doubt him for opening day.
And Rod, for the Tigers, looked like Miguel Cabrera, the big fella, really starting to round into form now.
Well, no one worries about Cabrera. I mean, he's one of those guys, if you write down his name in the batting order every single day, which Jim Leland will do, and if he stays healthy, he's going to hit 300 plus, he's going to hit 30 plus home runs, and he's going to drive in more than 100 runs. I think the Achilles heel for the Tigers today, too many base on balls from that pitching staff.
Tigers have Minnesota tomorrow here in Lakeland. Meanwhile, the Cardinals will take on the Florida Marlins in Jupiter tomorrow. And thanks to our viewers who watched today's game on Fox Sports Detroit and Fox Sports Midwest. Now for Rod Allen and Al Ravosky, this is Mario and Pemba. Once again reminding you our final score here this afternoon. The St. Louis Cardinals 9, the Detroit Tigers 4. So long from sunny Lakeland, Florida.